Welcome everyone to the LEC Summer Playoffs. What a season it's been so far, and it seems it was only yesterday when 10 teams embarked on a mission for an LEC title and a spot at the World Championship. But now we are rapidly approaching the zenith of the summer split, and there's only 6 teams left standing, but absolutely everything to play for. First up, coming off a World's Finals and double titles in 2018, Fnatic wanted nothing more than to continue that domination of Europe, but they dramatically fell short in spring. This time around, they've already secured themselves a spot in Athens and are stopping at nothing to get back to the top of Europe and the world stage. But in their way, and frankly in everyone's way for that matter, stand Perkz and G2 Esports, LEC champions, MSI champions, and perhaps the best team Europe has ever seen. They enter playoffs in first place, and it will take a monumental upset to keep them from the title. It is G2 against everyone, and everyone against G2. But one of their challengers is Schalke 04, a well-oiled machine who made up for a lackluster spring split with a solid run to 4th place. But can Upset and crew prove that last year's finals wasn't a fluke, wasn't a one-off, and can the organization finally make it to Worlds? Now, Vitality, they are the wild card of the playoffs. The team has always played like a bull in a china shop, but the VIT magic has not delivered in 2019 so far, and very few are betting on the Italian Stallion and company this time around. But can they subvert expectations like they've done so many times these past 2 years? Now, there's no doubt at all about who the underdogs of our playoffs are. It is Rogue. They surprised everyone by making it here after ending last place in spring. Now, no one really expects them to reach the second round. But then again, who even expected them to make it here, to make it to playoffs? Finally, Splyce, they start their run against Rogue, but we've heard it all before. Potential, great regular season, bridesmaids, forever third, but this time is different. Could be different. They have the best chance they've had in 3 years to make it to Athens and make it to Worlds, as long as they don't stumble at that first hurdle. It all starts now. The road to Athens, the road to the trophy, and the road to Worlds. Let's kick off the LEC Summer Playoffs.
There are gonna be a lot of good series. There's a lot of kills, a lot of fights everywhere. The game is just so bloody right now.
Vitality eliminate SK Gaming from playoffs and from the regional qualifiers. Vitality make it to the postseason.
After we won, I just exploded with all the emotions that were in my body, and I just couldn't stop crying. I was criticized so much, and I was so glad that I showed up big time, the most important game of the split so far. I always say that the biggest driving motor is the fear. Maybe I didn't work enough, but it's on me, because I create the space to become a better player.
Tether here down towards the bottom side of the cross, team pop, and look at the damage coming out from it. 11, 2v2, Mickey and Perkz fall, Vitality.
I'm visualizing World. It's in Europe ever since it's been announced. It's in finals in Paris. It's driving me nuts on this, and that pushes me forward.
Kimura does a lot of damage. He's dodging, but it doesn't matter. Can he get it? Upset goes through, finds the kill, shut down.
What's unique about Europe right now is that even the bottom teams have like players that you have to like respect for their individual talent at least.
Look at the base, look at the base! Oh, just when you think it can't get wild. Papa, you wanted a fiesta, and Schalke are here for a party.
I was in the final last summer. I was close to winning the whole thing, so I'm really not content with just making 2 playoffs.
We made a rise to the top again, and I think we're a contender for pretty much everything.
And Origin re-engage the fight, but they are shuffled to pieces. Rogue find a perfect fight. And from last place in spring, Rogue continue to prove they belong in playoffs.
Towards the end now, I feel like we have finally found ourselves.
Prophet in a 4v1 is still surviving. He goes golden, buys enough time. It's a 4 versus 1. Prophet's not done. Rogue, that was amazing.
How good am I? How good am I?
We're not scared to make moves and plays. Even if they don't work out, we don't give up, and I think that's our strength.
Everyone is going to give it their all. Everyone wants to make Athens. We're just going to play like we have nothing to lose.
A supreme display of talent there by the Splyce collective.
The skill ceiling of this team is much higher than it was the previous year. We are willing to play even more aggressive than we did last year, and that's the big improvement.
Zersi's still there, the barrel comes out and Zersi gets it! Once again he steps up! He has had an impeccable split. Look at the damage coming out from them. The Elder Dragon, North Scammon on the backline. Zersi steals it and Splyce take the game.
My goal for this split is to make it worse.
Just making playoffs doesn't really make me satisfied.
We are definitely not gonna take this for granted, and we are still in it.
Winning is my expectation. I got second place at Worlds last year and that wasn't enough for me, so I decided to join G2 because I wanted to take it one step further. The expectations can never cloud my judgment. Now that it's playoffs and every game matters so much more, is when we're gonna really step it up. This is where champions are created.
We know that we can't get complacent because then it's very easy to lose.
I really just want to win Worlds honestly at this point, so that I can say in a couple of years that I started playing the game because I wanted to be the best at it. I played the game for 8 years, I became the best at it, and then I left a strong and solid legacy behind. That's honestly why I started playing the game. It wasn't because of money, it wasn't because of fame, it was just I wanted to be the best at League of Legends, and I feel like I haven't really reached that yet.
Teams battle to lift the LEC trophy in Athens. The Surprise of Summer Rogue are here for the first time, but they are up against Splyce, and they are experienced and have their eyes set rather on the prize. There are the Rogue boys as well. Vander leading the pack much as he does in game. Also, as the guys approach the studio, hello everyone. My name is Shox and I'm here with Ender and with Frosk. I just absolutely love that video because you get a glimpse into all the different motivations as to why people want to do well in playoffs and why they want to get to Worlds. It can be the upstart rookies, it can be a Reckless who's tried for so long, it can be a Fnatic wants a title back, all kinds of things, and that's what makes it so nice.
Yeah, everyone is ready for playoffs. Everyone is coming here with something on their shoulders, something they want to prove, and I'm just so excited to see it.
It's go time. Yeah, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I'm ready.
Let's go then. So, let's see how last week finished. Last week of the regular season in summer, G2 and Fnatic made it to Athens, but the big fight was for the last playoff spots. It was all left to be decided as we went into that final week, and Origin didn't make the cut.
Yeah, it's a huge surprise here, going from second place in spring to now 8th place at the end of the season. Of course, it was this 4-team sprint for those last playoff spots, and it was actually Rogue last week that took out Origin and forced their way into top 5.
The thing is that no one expected Origin to even be in that sprint for the very last playoff. They thought that they were going to be contending for the top, that they would continue to be in that top 3, so everyone's going to be scratching their head for a very long time. What the hell happened to Origin?
And hopefully they can recover in time because they're playing the regional qualifier, the gauntlet, to make it to Worlds. Otherwise, you can't even start to describe what a disaster that would be for Origin, but let's look at the positive. Vitality sneaks in there. I say sneak, of course they deserve it, but they had to play a tiebreaker for it, and you don't want to be doing that at the end of your summer.
Right, because this team really started struggling week 8 and week 9 after looking like they were solidly going to get in here. They needed this tiebreak game against SK that they were able to win pretty convincingly, and now the question is, can they get back to the form that they were on the rise of? Can they shake off those last 2 weeks and come out big tomorrow?
It was a heartbreaker. heartbreaker, but finally it feels like Vitality found their motivator in that emotional turmoil with the team. We know that they ride on emotion, that when they feel high, they play high. So let's see if they're still riding those wins.
We'll see. Tomorrow they're playing Schalke 04. Final team I want to touch on is Fnatic. They are ready for Athens. They locked a top 2 spot, and they had a very successful showing versus Splyce in the match of the week for that top 2 spot last week. And we saw some things that we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, I feel like Fnatic had a really good read on Splyce. Splyce like to download you, they dissect you, and then they defeat you. And Fnatic just threw a wrench into all of that plan by pulling out a pick like the Urgot. Whippo stepped up. He caught Splyce off guard. They didn't know how to deal with this, and Fnatic rolled over when everyone was saying tiny champion pool. Fnatic only play 5 champions. He said, hell no.
And in a game that was all about team fighting, it was Reckless too that stepped up in those fights. Usually he's on the back lines. This game, he was going in on the Kai'Sa, assassinating people like Humanoid, really stepping up at the right time.
Playoff buff activated, and over the next 3 weeks will of course decide our LEC Summer Champions and Europe's first seed at Worlds 2019. The playoff format changed coming into 2019. I think most of you are already familiar with it, but Frosk, what's the TLDR, the most important takeaway?
We have the coolest playoff format ever. I love this playoff format, and I was in the LPL, so I've seen multiple formats. It's basically a soft double elimination. If you're in the top 2, you call it the King's Match in our G2 Fnatic. Loser of that isn't eliminated from playoffs. They will live to play again, whereas the winner is seeded directly into the finals.
Yeah, it's also super important. Our finals in Athens, it's not a 3rd place match and a final. It is a seeding match to get into that final. So whoever wins the game between G2 and Fnatic automatically goes to the final. Loser plays the winner of the other series next week, and that'll be the day before the grand final in Athens.
Possible 2 best of 5s between Fnatic and G2, but the first time will be next Saturday, the 31st of August, the Kings match, because they got 1 and 2 respectively, and they're going to Athens no matter what, and the loser will of course get a rematch to get to those finals. But when we look at the final form, G2 has always been the final boss, right? When we look at this year, but Fnatic, they're looking poised. So are we being hopeful that this could be a competitive run for them to the title possibly?
I mean, you hope so. You hope it's not another 6-0 Origin versus G2 fiasco, but we won't see. The good news is that theoretically, Fnatic might get 2 runs at this.
We'll see what happens. In any case, you can see Fnatic in G2 and 1/3 team in Athens. That will be on the 7th and the 8th of September. Get your tickets now for the summer finals rather at riot.com/Athens. We are all looking forward to that. But if you missed any of the games this split or weren't able to watch everything, how dare you? No, of course.
What are you doing?
So many games in so many regions. So of the 4 teams we'll see this first weekend in round 1, we wanted to give you a rundown of what to look out for. Starting with Rogue. Rogue first up, the underdogs of the playoffs. Last place in spring. How did they make it here?
Well, they started by revamping this roster after a 10th place finish in spring, bringing in so much young blood from the regional leagues. You'll notice the only player on this screen that has played a playoff match in the LEC before is Vander. Otherwise, it's 4 people with no experience in postseason, and it is Vander in a lot of these games that's stepping up in the mid-game to make things happen.
The thing to really understand about Rogue is that if you make a mistake, they are a team that is good enough to punish you. Like he said, it's Vander getting to those plays. They love playing as 5v5 units. They're really good at team fighting. And so if Splyce aren't on their best form, Rogue can take a bite out of you.
We'll see. They are the underdogs, but they've proven people wrong before. The next team we want to look at is Schalke. They're back in playoffs, made it to the finals in summer of 2018, didn't make it to playoffs in spring, and they're back. And I can't put my finger on it, but they feel more well-rounded. They feel like an actual contender for the top spots.
Yeah, speaking of team fighting, I love Schalke's team fighting. I think collectively it helps when you have a guy like Upset, but this is the fundamental, basic League of Legends team. They play by the book, they play it very clean, they like to minimize risk, and it leads to a lot of consistency.
Yeah, and a lot of their playmaking comes from 2 very important players of the squad, Ignar and Trick. You'll notice, come mid-game, all of their plays are going to be collapsing on side lanes with this duo. This is a team that plays very well around pressure. When they have a numbers advantage, you can be almost guaranteed that they are going to attack you, and there's not going to be much you can do against.
Yeah, there looks to be an evolution, though. When you say the correct League of Legends is the right team, sometimes that makes me think, oh, is it them boring or slow? But that isn't the case.
No, they're very much playing around monster objectives or objectives in general. They love 5v5s, and they'll play a lot of champions with level 6 ultimates. And as soon as you have that, you know that something's about to happen in the Schalke game. That they're always going to fight for Herald, they're always going to fight for Dragon, and they are always going to fight you for Baron.
Tomorrow, they're fighting Vitality, who had a disappointing year so far. I mean, it's hard, you know. You're Vitality, you come in 2018, you have the rookies, you get to Worlds, you beat some of the best teams in the world, all the eyes are on them. But even even with that expectation, I think we all expected them to be better so far.
If Schalke are all about consistency, Vitality are the polar opposite. They have no consistency, but they do have clutch factor. When push comes to shove, when this team has their backs against the wall, you have no idea what's going to come out of them. They love their base races, they love playing side lanes, and they love having these hero moments where guys like Cabochard and Jizuke can step up and do the impossible.
And they need Jizuke to step up. If this team wants to make a dent here in playoffs, Jizuke has to be the player you watch. You got champions that he loves to play that are getting buffed, like the Echo. I want him to return to some of these comfort picks like you see on the screen right now. When he feels at home, he looks like a fantastic player.
Yeah, and it does look like for most of this year, it's been completely up to if Mowgli has a fantastic early game, or if Jizuke has these games, it was all right. But they never really felt to me like they had that synergy that they had last year. Frosken, you said for me, last week in that tiebreaker, this was finally when they took that step forward.
Yeah, and it was finally when they started playing together as a team. You'll constantly look at the minimap and you'll see that Jizuke is dashing forward, diving 2 towers, and Mowgli is literally in base. As soon as Vitality all get on the same page, where Jizuke is being backed up by his jungler, suddenly they look so much cleaner.
But it's still incredibly, incredibly volatile, so we'll see how they do tomorrow. But finally, not volatile, actually the anti-volatile team, Splyce. They are the favorites to make it to Athens. In my opening there, I talked about it, about all these words that surround them and all these prejudices and monikers of third place and bridesmaid and not good enough to be the absolute top 2. Are they in summer?
I mean, Splyce, they're definitely top 3. Their goal is to make it to Athens, is to try and make it to that final and break into the top 2. This is an organization that for a long time has been trying to ascend to the top of Europe here. And so far this split, they've been a very systematic team, taking you down one by one by one. Very strong play out of them. And in particular, I think Humanoid has been the huge X factor for them, completely transforming his play from spring to summer. He is now a huge carry force for this team.
I mean, the thing is that you face Splyce and you don't feel like you're being pressured in lane. So many times teams will say that Kabe and Norskaren aren't really putting the heat on you. You know that Kabe can stand his ground in late game team fights, but it's Humanoid who will actually kill people in lane. And like you're saying, it's Humanoid that will create that X factor for Splyce, where they actually look explosive in an early game.
Extremely high expectations for Splyce and all the other teams in playoffs. And we've got some spice to work with. We've got a new patch. 9.16 is upon us. There were a decent amount of changes, and which ones jumped out to you going into our playoffs?
Well, first of all, I'd like to pull up some champions here. Notice there's a lot more champions that were changed on this patch. So we pulled the 5 biggest buffs in terms of win rate and high elo in solo queue, and the biggest nerfs in terms of decrease. And you already see the biggest winner was Nocturne. That dude shot up and, you know, it's just pulling Vedius right up into Master Tier right now.
Okay. In reality, though, I do want to point out 2 key things. I want to point out the tanks, because Dr. Mundo, he's not on this, but I think that Dr. Mundo is potential to be played, as well as Shin got some buff. So maybe if we see more even Gangplank lanes, yeah, he gets a free lane, but maybe there's something you could scale up for late game team fights. And then the bot lanes. Xayah Rakan should be king, especially with Sivir still being nerfed, as well as the Tahm Kench. But it's like Xayah Rakan and Kai'Sa Nautilus, and these are our big 2 bot lanes still in the meta.
I see Pantheon there, and I feel like it's kind of a tease because disabled for our playoffs.
No Pantheon for us, but I'll tell you something, so put a smile on your face. Yeah. Azir and Corki nerfs, get those guys out of here. I, for one, am very happy. Big base AD nerfs hits to Corki. I think his priority is going to go way down, and Azir was already sort of on the way out, lower priority in the past few weeks. He got a lighter nerf, but still enough to make his priority go way down in my mind.
I agree that the priority will go down, and ultimately what that means is that the mid-champion pool should open up, especially with Syndra also getting buffed up. It might mean that there's different blind picks, but we agree Assassins are probably still on the table. Things like Akali, very high priority.
So sounds good. Or are we going into a world where it's Akali only all the time? Or are we seeing bigger diversity in the types of mid lane champions you can play?
I think more diversity. We saw some buffs like Kassadin to try and make him counter out some AP melee mid laners. We saw FLICKR play both the Kassadin and the Echo earlier today. So I'm very hopeful for mid lane. I think in the jungle too, with Sejuani getting taken down a peg, we're going to see a lot more Gragas in our games. Kiana, some Sylas nerfs to jungle, but he'll still stay around.
It's so interesting because hopefully all these teams have done their homework, but they haven't played this on the competitive patch yet, unless this best of 5. What? Well, then we're gonna move on to our first best of 5 soon, and here's Ender to break down Splyce's summer so far.
Can he? Can he do that?
Thanks, Shocks. Now, Splyce's summer split got off to a bumpy start, but it's been a while.
Andy, read me a story.
It's way past your bedtime, Trev. What are you doing? Okay, fine. This is The Little Yellow Snake by Xerxes. Once upon a time, a little yellow snake dreamed of traveling far, far away to the city of Athens. No snake had left their home in quite some time, but this little yellow snake knew he was in his prime. He set off on his journey without any delay, only to get splatted on his very first day. No snake can take on a samurai, so he was told. You are far too shy, and that samurai is so bold.
A samurai's mean.
Up ahead, the little snake saw some bees, so he found a friend in a spider queen who helped him beat those bees with ease. Still, the little yellow snake was not yet content, for he had to stay behind while to NA others went. From his home he watched, sad and lonely. If only he had the chance to prove himself. If only, if only. The little yellow snake was no longer the underdog. He made friends with Kiana, and she helped him get his first Kia Pog. Now, please disregard the top of this page. I know it looks wrong, but don't be outraged. Our artist got bored, his game was too free, max stacks on his mesh eyes, and a killing spree. I take this time to flame his poor spelling, but please don't forget, he still was excelling.
Carry on.
The little snake's journey was coming to a close. Sadly, no snake can buy boots, for they lack 10 toes.
Yeah, I got toes. Look, they're over here.
That's great, son. That's great. While these foes were easy, next week would not be, for up ahead was the big bad FNC.
Bum, bum.
For 42 minutes, the snake fought to his limits. He tried all he could, but it wasn't enough. The little snake was good, but the big bad FNC was too tough.
Oh no!
But the little yellow snake's fight is not fully spent, for he has just begun his final ascent. This is the last page, but don't you lament. Come playoff time, Splyce will not relent. There.
Trevor's taking a nap. No, thank you so much for that, Ender. Nice to put a highlight on the drawings that Xerxes does every week on his Twitter. We'll see what he'll draw after the playoffs, but first I want to welcome my guests here. K-Droll, jungler for XL, and Hussein Mousvi, head coach for Misfits. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Nice introduction, wasn't it, the story?
That was a good one. It was something.
Peak LEC content. Well, Splyce is a peak LEC team. In general, we've talked a lot about Splyce already, but can I get some high-level thoughts from you guys about how strong you think they're going to be in these playoffs?
Well, I think you can think of Splyce as like a better version of Rogue, because I think they play the game exactly the same almost. They have the exact same priorities, and I think that they're both kind of late-game teams. I think the only difference you'll see is the jungle mid mismatch is quite big. I think Humanoid's a lot more of like a pop-off assassin aggressive player, whereas Larsen's more of that control mage safe carry. And then Xerxes more of like a safe jungler. He's going to be very steady and even in farm, and I think Inspired might look for plays early.
And I think a lot of the criticisms for Rogue might come from because a lot of their strengths are, or rather the weaknesses are basically what Splyce was criticized for in the past. They're a very reactionary team, and Splyce has gotten so much better at that. It's really an uphill battle for Rogue this time around to try to.
Yeah, and they are underdogs, and I think there's no shame in that. If you look at the organization coming in to the split and in spring, ending in last place, then making the necessary changes with the members from their Ultra Liga roster. It is the first time the org is in the LCS playoffs. And what is your goal then? If you're some of the rookies with the experienced players, of course you're going to say we want to get as far as possible. But where do you think their ceiling lies in these playoffs specifically?
So I think Splyce is heavy favorites for this one, and therefore, like, if you're Rogue over here, you're looking to prove that as rookies, you want to perform to your expectations on the big stage when it matters. They have someone like Vander who's there to lead the charge and like really help them out for that. But it's really on the rookies to step up and perform at their level on the big stage.
How? What can you say to them to make it click? Because we've seen them beat Origin last week, and that was arguably one of the most high-stress situations they could have been put in. They also already managed to beat Schalke, so there is potential there.
There's definitely potential. I think Splyce went 0-2 last weekend as well, so you can definitely watch those games back, look for ways you can exploit the drafts or the game. But I think the main thing for me is Vander. Like, when you see this guy playing Alistar or Nautilus, he's always jumping in the team fights, and even in fights like these where Vander's not really around, the team of rookies is not scared to just go for a 4v5, go for a 4v4, and just try to pop off.
Yeah, it maybe isn't, there's not that much system to it yet, or that much exact planning that you can see in the games, but it does seem that the will is there to start the fights, and they're not afraid to make them.
Yeah, initially, like that's I think the main thing. Coming into game one, how does Rogue actually play? Are they aggressive? Are they in Splyce's faces? Are they looking to create fights for themselves? And then how much of that is reliant on Vander? Are they relying on their big experienced carry, or sorry, support, like enabler essentially, to make those plays for them, or will the other four step up and do it as well?
One of the news guys on stage is Finn, and let's see what he has to say before his first LEC playoffs appearance.
Thank you very much, Shox. Finn, you're coming in today as the real underdogs of this LEC Summer Playoffs. So do you think it gives you guys an edge over Splyce, and why?
I think it's very nice to have this aura of the underdog because, I mean, we're very young players, so the feeling of being able to play without like any regrets and nothing to lose is just really, it's really nice to have, and it kind of puts off all pressure on us.
Do you have any expectations coming in today?
Today we go in with zero expectations. We just go in and we're gonna play our game.
Free as birds, that's the right spirit, I guess.
Yeah.
You will be playing your very first best of 5 on stage, and we know how different it is to prep for a best of 1 versus a best of 5. So can you tell me about the prep you went through this week to be ready today?
I mean, we've done a lot of research on all their players and like how they want to play the game, and also what kind of champions they prefer to pick in the different situations. So I think we're pretty prepared to anything they might show on us, unless they have something really scary prepared, in which we have a very nice way of responding to it as well.
Awesome. It's nice to have a response, but in game 1, they will be playing red side as they had side selection, so you won't have an ability to counter pick. So can you give me some specifics on game 1?
Game 1? I mean, game 1 we're gonna go in with kind of an idea, and then for the rest of the games we're gonna try to adapt, like depending on how the game went. But for the game 1 we have a specific plan in mind we want to try, and we're just gonna see how it pans out for the rest of the games.
All right, well, thank you very much for these insights, and good luck on your very first series. Now back to you, Shox.
Thank you very much, Laura. Always nice to hear from Finn. We also want to hear from all the LEC fans at home. Who will win our first playoff series? You can vote in the chat. Spam now RGE for Rogue or SPY for Splyce. I just want to jump in there for that interview. Do you both agree that that's the best plan? They're basically already saying, it sounds to me like, oh, we've got a plan. So we've got a special pick or a special strategy. Is that the best way to go?
Yeah, I definitely think it is. I mean, they've definitely researched the last couple of weeks of games for sure. They've seen some tendencies that Splyce have. I think they have a few small champion pools in certain roles, and they did go 0-2 last week, right?
Doesn't it sound like throwing the towel in before? What would be, I'd love to hear from maybe Moose as well, but wouldn't you start with kind of the standard and what, if you played your best at that, see if you can win? Or
I assume that they have like one specific draft, like or some variation of that draft that they want to start game 1 off with, and I think they're hoping that that either shows weaknesses in Splyce's prep, or at the least that it shows that there's like adaptations that can be made so that they can beat Splyce. So like, I think it's fine. I think they're coming in with something that they're comfortable with, that they think can take a game off Splyce initially, and it's fine.
Yeah, also with the new patch now, maybe they have something prepared. Fans at home are voting. Rogue is winning in the fan vote for now. I do know that in the predictions, all 3 of us said Splyce would win 3-0, 3-0, and 3-1, as far as I know. And let's dive a little bit deeper into the specifics of this matchup as we see this counting on, because we touched on it already. In terms of playstyles, they are going to win the fan vote. It is a bit delayed normally, but they still seem to be edging out Rogue. In terms of playstyles, it's a hard one for Rogue since they play much in the same way as Splyce, just don't do it as well. Could you give some specifics as to how that plays out?
Yeah, so you can see from these numbers here, I think both junglers aren't really looking for plays early. They look to farm, they look for these opportunities which are more guaranteed rather than these risky plays. And you'll see them, probably most of the fights will come around neutral objectives. I don't think much junglers will look for ganks unless it's like a Jarvan level 2 gank or a Xinza level 2 gank. I think something like that will be how the game plays out.
And I think the other thing is that Splyce feels like they have like at least 3 people that are always willing to make plays at any given point and are reliable in that. Rogue has Vander, who's incredibly reliable, and you can see that in his picks. But the other one is Finn, especially on picks like Kled. And outside of those 2, the other 3, it's really on the other 3 to like step it up really, and also look for the same level plays. Because if Rogue is only relying on 2 people and Finn on very specific champions to do that, then they'll always struggle to find fights.
Yeah, Finn is kind of the X factor there as well. I think Humanoid is definitely an X factor. On Splyce, a couple of other individuals I want to put the spotlight on. Kobbe, he's always there. He's a franchise man. He's also the guy who we're always looking at in terms of kind of leading those late game surges from Splyce. How good is the Kobbe of summer 2019?
I think this is the best that he's ever been.
Okay.
It also helps that he has a really strong carry from mid lane now, so there's so much space being created in fights by both the carries that they're complementing each other really well. So Kobbe's looking exceptional right now. I think easily top 280 carry, and Humanoid's, you know, right there with him.
Fantastic. They seem to be ready for playoffs. Final thing I want to mention is as we get into this first game, the early game and just the jungle in general is going to be so important. Cadril, how do you think Inspired is going to do versus Xerxes?
Well, I think he's going to do pretty fine in the early game. I think both junglers have a very similar jungle champ pool. I think we'll be seeing lots of Gragas, Skarner. I think the Olaf will probably be banned away from Inspired. I think Olaf's the only champ where he's looked to be really strong in the early game. But I think that both junglers will be pretty even towards the early mid game. It just depends who sets up the objectives best and plays around their lane priorities. difficulties.
We've heard it already, maybe a special strategy from Rogue. Who is going to be their X factor? Is it Vander who can do it for them if they manage to take some games?
Could be Vander on his Alistar, on his Nautilus. We've seen some great engages from him against Origin last weekend. I think it could also be Finn, like Hussein said. I think he's got his Kled pocket pick, which is something that Splyce should expect, but it's hard to play against.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, though. Even though there's no pressure on Splyce, I think the last thing they want to do is fall at this first hurdle. That would just be awful for them. So they also have everything left to play for. We are ready to start the LEC 2019 Summer Playoffs with Splyce versus Rogue. Let's hit the riff.
Thank you, Shocks. Hello, fellow Summoners. I'm Dracos, joined by the wonderful Frost, as we get ready for the first game in what I'm sure will be a compelling best-of-5 series. I cannot wait to see these two teams go toe-to-toe. But if you saw the prediction graphic on Twitter, you may have already ascertained that it does appear to be a bit of a Splyce-favored matchup. But that said, the fan vote still very much on the side of Rogue.
Yeah, the Rogue fans coming in pretty strong today, but that's the thing. It feels like the expectations are very different for these teams. A lot of people didn't expect Rogue to even be to this point, so it's about defying those expectations, seeing how strong they can be in playoffs, whereas for Splyce, you need to prove that you're worthy. This should be a very easy task to dispatch Rogue if you want a chance at competing with Fnatic and G2.
Right, because Splyce even chose to face off against Rogue in this game right here, so we can jump on into this. We already have some expectations for these two teams because every Splyce draft feels very, very similar. They have some clear goals of what they're trying to pick up when they go into draft. That's like a self-sufficient top laner for Vizicsacsi, a level 6 farming jungler, a bot lane you can play through and have these scaling options. All these boxes must be hit, and then they can play the Splyce style we know.
And then on the other side, Larson usually has a very consistent mid laner. He's one of the most stable members for Rogue, while as I agree with what the desk was just saying, Vander, you want these playmaking, engage opportunities, things like his Alistar, his Nautilus, or more importantly, the Rakan, if possible.
Interesting now as we see some bans come up on screen shortly. Keeping you guys updated as it appears there is a delay in updating these, the overlay on your screen. It is the GP as well as the Xayah banned away on the side of Rogue. GP, of course, something that Vizicsacsi took into Finn's Kled last time they played and did dominate him. And the Olaf, of course, on the opposite. Not surprising to see.
Yeah, I think the GP is really smart here. Vizicsacsi loves that pick, and it helps Splyce hit another one of those boxes, and that's long-range, non-committal engage. The Sejuani, another one of those picks that we have our eyes on even after some nerfs to try and fit into Xerxes' wheelhouse.
But it all also makes Rogue's plan pretty clear here with the Shen ban. They are taking away blind pickable options for Chachi in the GP and the Shen, which means that I think they're going to try to give firepower to Finn. They're going to try to play through this guy on one of his signature picks like the Kled.
Notice we're not seeing any Yuumi bans after the nerfs on 9/16. Priority has gone down on that champion. I also think Vander and Norscairn much prefer to play the melee all-in supports, the likes of the Nautilus, and that, of course, the Yuumi gets locked in right now as I say that,
yeah,
but it's not getting banned.
What do they prefer, Andrew?
I mean,
one more time.
I think they prefer the all-in melee supports, especially Norscairn.
But this seems really risky because you know that the potential of the Nautilus or even the Volibear are still there. We've seen how devastating those two champions can be to something like a Yuumi, maybe even the Poppy if Chachi wants to go back to one of his blind pickable tank options. I feel like there's more than a few champions that Splyce can rely on to disrupt that Yuumi and whatever plan Finn and Rogue have brewing with it.
And now immediately though, Splyce respond with the Akali pick. Incredible in the hands of Humanoid so far this season. See what he can do in the postseason now in the playoffs. And paired up with the Lucian, there's a lot of very powerful champions on the side of Splyce.
We were talking back and forth behind stage getting ready for this matchup. And Ender, you and I both agreed that we thought Akali was going to be the highest priority. I am very curious to see what this Yuumi pick means for Rogue when we know that Larson and Humanoid both play Akali and they gave it away.
I think we now know what it means, ladies and gentlemen.
Lord.
It's time for a little bit of Garen Yuumi. That's right. If you can't beat him, join him. And that is the story for Rogue. Unable to take down Fnatic. So we'll borrow a little bit from their book of tricks. Now paired with a nerfed Corki as well. Important art. So nerfed Corki, nerfed Yuumi, unnerfed Garen. But this is an interesting composition.
He is the secret weapon, clearly.
So we've seen this Garen Yuumi bot lane before, and it looks real bad early levels. I think, you know, the likes of a Lucian on the other side, you play through this bottom lane, you must smash it early, because we've seen what a Yuumi and a Garen can do in the mid game. He becomes almost unkillable with that cat attached to him, and the cat enables him to run you down and alleviate all the weaknesses of closing the gap as Garen.
And I think that also puts pressure on Xerxes. Now, he's already got Kabe on the likes of Lucian, so there is firepower and the potential to really hard smash a bot lane down there. although it's still relatively difficult to kill a Garen. So Xerxes needs to play something in the jungle that gives him agency, that allows him to attack this lane if they really do want to put it down early.
Which is interesting because Xerxes is almost always on these level 6 junglers that he can scale into the mid to late game very strongly on. Maybe needs to go for something a little bit more proactive. He played the Elise a lot earlier on in the season. It's a strong pairing, especially along something like that Renekton. Could be a good choice for him. Try and shut down Rogue early on.
And I'm gonna be honest, we've seen a ton of variety in Rogue's drafts. We were talking about that earlier today, but from Splyce, this feels like a big departure from what we've seen so far. We have a lot of strong, almost outside of the Akali early lane focused champions for them, not something we have associated with Vizicachi in a while. And now he's limiting the options that Finn will have to go up against him, taking the Aurelia, taking the Kled away, trying to secure that priority matchup for top side. Not something I'm used to seeing for Splyce.
Well, I think if Rogue were ever going to actually be on the other side of a victory and you asked what happened, how did Rogue actually take down Splyce, it's that Rogue got an early game composition that was able to abuse Splyce in lanes. Normally Splyce don't like to play aggressive in their lanes, don't usually pick up a lot of kills there outside of Humanoid in the mid lane, so this is a departure for Splyce, and why not in game 1 in a best of 5, try to see if you can attack Rogue in the early game and say, we're a better late game team anyway, let's bring the firepower early and just shut them down before this begins.
It seems like Splyce are trying something new, Rogue are trying something new. It's all about this game 1 experimentation to feel out your opponents, try to figure out what they're prioritizing, and if it doesn't work, you have games to fall back onto to try something new out. This Sylas very likely going to be in the jungle here for Xerxes, even after some nerfs to that clear, still a good option for him.
My only concern is that he doesn't have a lot of good ultimates to grab hold of. I think Corki's ultimate personally is my favorite out of this one, but you're not getting the same power of the Sylas if he was versus something like a Sejuani or a Jarvan. And I feel like something that Splyce's composition is missing is a lot of hard engage. If they ever do get anyone low, it's really hard for them to capitalize on that.
It's also just a very low-ranged comp in general, not just with the ability to start a fight off, but also in terms of your scrapping evolution. Very mobile comp, but they need to be able to close the gap onto you, and that's when they can really deal a lot of damage. The other thing you have to consider is consistent DPS to try and deal with a buffed up Garen later on in the game. You'd consider maybe a crit AD carry, a late game AD carry would be much more effective at dealing with him. Instead, the Lucian says we must win hard early.
And additionally, the Aatrox now paired through as well, a champion we expected to have higher priority, but with the midst of all of these crazy picks kind of slipped through the pick ban so far. All of the healing of an Aatrox paired with the Yuumi, 2 champions that when paired with the Yuumi are nigh unkillable. But finally, the Volibear lock-in coming through, taking something from the Book of Vitality. They did very well into this lane early game when it was Fnatic versus Vitality, the first time we saw the Yuumi Garen.
So taking a look at both these compositions for Splyce, I feel like they have a really strong 2-item composition right now. Mid-game should be really powerful for them. We already talked about the dominance that they can have in their lane phase. They have a lot of options like locking in that Volibear to deal with the Yuumi. It's just now, can they make good on this promise and really shut this cat down before the scaling and the unkillableness of Rogue takes over?
And can Splyce defy those expectations, the stigma behind this team? They must play through the late game. Can they change that here in game 1 of the playoffs and make a statement up against Rogue?
High stakes for both of these squads. Rogue to prove themselves time and time again, worthy in the eyes of the fans, but so many analysts skeptical of what they can accomplish on this stage. High-powered early jungler in the hands of Inspire. Time to prove the rumors wrong. Not just the Olaf one trick. Looking for a little bit more here. As Splyce on the opposite side. Expected 3-0, need to prove they're dominant, have bigger aspirations than just being top 3, and it is all going to be defined here in this best of 5. And here we go, folks. Classic level 1 stare down. No crazy plays at this stage, although you can see North Karen and Kabe keeping their eyes out. And you talk about the early game, the importance of bot lane to win. Well, I can't imagine anyone's going to be dying at level 1, so why don't we shift focus just a little bit, as Lucian is forced to dash away there. That's a lot of respect paid. Looking at the jungle matchup, looking at the Sylas that was nerfed on 916 up against a champion like the Elise.
Yeah, I mean, this is a champion that lost some damage against monsters specifically, so it's not going to reduce your ability to duel enemy junglers, especially later on in the game when Sylas does become so strong. But first clear, going to be a little bit weaker. The Q does have damage reduction when used against monsters now, but this will be a very similar story to most of Xerxes' games, where it is playing for faster level 6. Expect him to stick around his topside camps and really farm those free XP, while Inspired has a lot more windows to make plays between levels 3 and 5.
So it feels like Splyce have really strong laners in the Akali, the Renekton, the Lucian, the Volley, whereas Rogue have a very strong ganking jungler with the Elise. So can she try to punish some of these very aggressive lane positions from Splyce members?
Because while we have seen very explosive early games from Inspired, as you heard on the desk, both these guys are a little bit slower, are a bit more controlled, more worried about kind of denying opportunities for the opponent. But denying the Sylas in the early game will not be enough. If you're Elise in this case, you do need to make sure that Garen and the Yuumi can get through their lane safely. You want to snowball some of these other lanes and make sure Vizicachi doesn't dominate Finn like he did the last time we saw these two go head-to-head.
And if you're looking at lanes where Inspired could maybe look for some kind of play early on in the match, very unlikely that you can get anything done bottom lane around that side of the map because, let's face it, Garen and Yuumi don't offer a whole lot in terms of gank setup. But if you wanted to look into the mid lane, if Humanoid was ever pushing out of position, you could make something happen. Top lane as well, with a strong early laner like Aatrox, dueling 2v2 topside should be favorable for them until Xerxes gets some items under his belt.
Just want to quickly highlight what our observer showed us right there. It's really important when you're in a range versus assassin matchup that you get to the wave and you're able to bounce it and get it off that tower, because as soon as the assassins get around level 3, level 4, that's when the trade back becomes a lot scarier. So if the assassins can hold the wave on this side of the lane, they get level 3, they get access to all of their abilities, suddenly they're in the ranged champion's face and they really start abusing them. So this is kind of the one window when you're against a Corki that you can try to punish it, because if a gank comes early on, then suddenly that guy blows his flash, he can't approach the wave.
Have to see if that's where the attention goes. What Larssen could do, you can see a little bit of a focus on trying to shove this one in, not pushing too fast here.
I think because he's against the Sylas and they also have a ward on the top of his river, you can see it right there on top of Larssen, that's why he's playing safely like this. He knows that I'm probably not going to get ganked by Xerxes. I'm free to get this bounce and get this level 3 and get out of this Akali's face when I want to.
Yeah, Xerxes' pathing has also now gone all the way down towards the bottom side of the map, skipping Krugs, which usually we see the Sylases go for, but he wants to be in this river at 3 minutes 15 seconds with that bot lane priority. If he were to run into someone like the Elise, could look for a fight, but more than likely, he walks into the enemy jungle, puts down a ward on the enemy Krugs, and then finds a reset for himself to get back on that top side of the map and continue power clearing for level 6.
All right, now, the only other time I've seen this exact bottom lane, the Garen and Yuumi were dead repeatedly in the first few minutes. This feels much slower, and if what you told me in Champs League is true, this is pretty much entirely Rogue favored if they're able to just sit in this lane and to chill. Like, what is the break point here where you're terrified of this Garen Yuumi?
I think you have to wait for multiple items here on the Garen, because there will reach a point, I think, where Garen is going to be really hard to actually take down, and where you can just use him to move Yuumi around and start killing people with that artillery. Now, Yuumi was nerfed on this patch, importantly, damage off of her Q, so this should not be as powerful as it was previously, but now Inspired just going to be around this bottom lane to help push out the wave, because if you can actually freeze the wave against a melee carry that wants to walk up and auto-attack to last hit, you can then set up for your jungler to come down and find an easy gank.
Yeah, it's really important to recognize that Inspired is playing weak side of his map right now and protecting his bot lane, and then also trying to give coverage to Larssen, who is still very far forward in this lane. Now what this does is it gives access for Xerxes to walk into Inspired's top side of his jungle. You can see he's now swept it out, and try to look for some counter jungling. Although as I say that, looks like the jungler's on a crash course.
They just run face first into each other. Ward will be placed, means Xerxes is going to get priority to walk away if he wants to, despite the nerfs still able to clear out that camp quite quickly. Does take the use of the smite, now backing away. Inspired, spot him, push him out of his jungle. We'll spot the ward. Just never want that awkward moment where you leave the ward unchecked. And honestly, the rest of the map, everything seems to be pretty slow, pretty steady, pretty controlled, but we are getting closer and closer to level 6s, and that, of course, is going to spell more action. And I do like the early bit itemization coming in from Vizicachi here on the top side.
And this is something we see a whole lot in this matchup in particular. Renekton up against the Aatrox, we go for the early Executioner's Calling. Of course, when Aatrox hits level 6, he gets so much bonus healing off of the ultimate. That was the buff he got when he lost the revive on that spell. But now with the pushing lane, Xerxes wants to be in this area and try to catch out Finn too far up in lane.
I think Finn has a sneaking suspicion about what's going to happen, but that ward very deep in the lane gives Splyce information that they're in that brush.
Oh, Norse Garen. All right, has the passive. Will we find a walk away? Nothing going to happen there, but Finn now caught on the wrong side of the creep wave. Definitely not where he wants to be. He's going to be in trouble and immediately taken down. First blood for Splyce.
And it looks like that Splyce just played the patience game with Finn right there, maybe taking advantage of some of his inexperience. Like we talked about, they have that ward very deep down the lane, so they knew that the Aatrox didn't just back up and walk to his tower, that he was sitting in the brush waiting to see if he could farm.
And you think maybe there's some miscommunication going on between the jungler and top laner of Rogue, because earlier, just a minute before that, Inspired had pathed up towards the top side of his jungle. Xerxes was there, stole away some camps. Now bot lane.
Scaring, not what he wanted. Immediate trade. Well played by Inspired. Sniffs the play out, is right where he needs to be.
So Inspired could have been top lane to defend Finn. Instead, he wants to play around this 2v2 bottom side. Get that early kill, give them some pressure in this 2 versus 2, which they've been slowly losing in CS, but as you expect, now some kills, they get to that point where Garen becomes a monster a little bit quicker.
Taking another look at this one, I have a feeling, oh, no, it's going to be the top lane gang. So again, that ward deep down into the lane, they knew that Finn was there. Finn decides to try his luck. He's like, there's no way he's still sitting in this brush. Surprise, he was.
Oh. And it's brutal, because he wants to break the freeze there. He does not want to have that wave frozen. He wants to be able to teleport back to the lane safely, and obviously more chaos ensues on the bottom side.
Yeah, so that was just an easy lane gank there from Inspired. We do get back onto the map at play, though. I think Splyce are going to be looking to try and make some stuff happen. What are we looking for here? All right, Splyce, they have a TP advantage right now in the top lane for Chachi, but he's getting chunked.
Getting big, and you can see the graphic at the bottom of your screen. Not quite as important as we thought it would be, as there's already another all-in. But this is the thing you need to keep your eyes on. Finn, of course, 6 games in the regular season. He's played 13 games total now. This is his 13th, and you can see when he's doing well, he's doing fine. He's a good contributor to the team. But when he gets put in a hole, normally he falls so far down. This game, though, now that he's fighting back against Vizicachi, could be a different story.
Yeah, and Finn's finding a lot of his confidence here because he does have his jungler underneath him. Now, what was scary is that Finn was really trying to break that freeze, which he does get the wave to crash in, so he's going to feel a little bit better. But it pulled Inspired to actually walk towards this top side to give him some cover so he could jam that one in because he's playing without TP.
And speaking of lacking that teleport, Chachi holds on to his, so something we need to keep our eyes on in the next few minutes while Splyce have this advantage are plays around that bottom lane. Now that Xerxes is level 6, you have more ability to make a move and try to get Kabe ahead on this Lucian. He also went back to base, picked up some AD for himself, so I really want to see Splyce try to get a deep ward in that bottom lane and have Vizicachi and Xerxes team up and make a play down bot.
And this is something that we saw all the time in the Fnatic versus Splyce game, is that Chachi will give up a lot of his priority in his own lane to give advantages to his team. Even when he is on something like a Gangplank that can play a side lane, Chachi is constantly grouping up and kind of at the beck and call of Splyce.
And that's something that Splyce really need, because you remember the previous Garen game, they were always getting dove and zoned away from CS under tower. Right now, Woolite is just down 60 gold, or 60 minions, only 300 gold separating him from Kabe, and the lane is constantly on Splyce's side of the map. They're not pressuring 2v2 in this lane, so they need to be able to bring in the rest of their teammates to find a flank.
And now I want to keep my eyes on the rest of the map, checking in on how the rest of the matchups are doing. Of course, Humanoid and Larson both without TP in the mid lane. And I think overall, when I look at this draft, it's pretty good news for Rogue. Despite the Corki nerfs, still confident enough to play him. They found a strategy for bot lane. Inspired has found success on an early game jungler that is not the Olaf or the Sejuani. So all things considered, this patch, which might have looked bad with the Corki and Azir nerfs, is looking a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, Corki doing fine so far. One of the concerns with the base AD changes is going to be the scaling. Ooh, Larson picking on. He's not concerned about the scaling right now, but he lost a lot of base AD. Win rate went down 5% in high-elo. Now Xerxes coming in from behind.
Ooh, good sidestep.
He's okay.
He has the
does
package.
Have the package. Question is, how much longer does he stay around? Good blast cone to get Larson out of the pit there. Not Larson, rather Inspired.
So something fun to bring up about Larson, and you can watch this on any of his matchups. He never misses CS. This guy is like Easy Hoon of old. He is so good at CSing, and he's part of the reason why Rogue do stay even in gold or get slightly ahead because of his numbers. And you can see that right now. 105 at 10 minutes. He's close to perfect CS.
It's actually so frustrating watching his pro view too, because he just actually will never fall down when his laners, sometimes make mistakes. You say, yes, in a matchup like this, ranged versus melee, he does have the advantage. But this is something very consistent he's done throughout the entire season. And for a player that's been relatively quiet in terms of making those flashy plays, it's that solid consistency that has been the rock for Rogue all split long.
It's about celebrating what makes Larson very unique comparatively to a lot of our other mid laners. It's not the flash, like you're saying, it's that consistency and that stability, and that he will always find you gold leads, especially in quiet games because his CSing is so strong.
Look at this. Things continue to get better and better for this Rogue bottom lane, getting through an early game that we expected to be very perilous, to be quite honest. But maybe Splyce have a response to their own. Xerxes setting up on the top side of the map. Can look to steal away the Aatrox ult if he wants to. A quick flash out from him, but that takes him out from the tower range, and that means he instantly dies.
So it is Chachi that is getting a lot of attention despite the fact that there's still a TP discrepancy. But while Splyce are putting all of their eggs up in the Renekton basket and paying off, it means that Norscairn and Kobbe are suffering in this bot lane as Inspired is making trip after trip after trip.
And I'm really not sure if this is worth it. If you can continue to deny Kobbe, that's the range damage deal. That's the consistent DPS from this Splyce squad. Yes, he's doing fine in terms of CS, but as more plates and kills and pressure goes into the control of Rogue, with a Cloud Drake on top of it, it's going to get much more frustrating for Splyce the later we get.
And the Cloud Drake was kind of the thing that I really agreed with. Like, maybe Splyce don't really want to play about bot side because that Dragon's not really worth it. But they tried to convert their top side power into this Rift Herald, and Rogue just immediately read the play. They have pressure bottom, they grab a couple of plates, they then walk it across the mid lane, and they themselves take the Rift Herald that Splyce started for him. It was a great play cross map from Rogue.
Honestly, just donated over. That has to feel bad from the side of Splyce. Thought that they were getting the better end of that play, but did not work out in their favor despite looking so good at the start here.
I mean, this is just a very nicely played dive from Splyce. You don't have much questions when it comes to this type of move, as, you know, so we have run ourselves into a pause. But coming off of that play was the more important part, because Splyce chose to reset multiple members while Xerxes tried to pick up the Herald solo, while Rogue just did this sweep from bottom lane up to the top side, as you mentioned, and were able to pick up both neutral objectives.
And right now, looking at this game, it feels to me like Rogue are the ones making the better plays. I mean, yes, Splyce have been successful on the top side, but when you pick the Lucian Volibear bottom lane, I just, once again, one game sample size before this game, I expected people to die, and literally nothing has happened there, and that's partly credit to Inspired, but it also doesn't look like Kobbe and Norscairn and Splyce as a team are ready and willing to play around that bottom side in the same capacity.
And I actually really like Rogue's strategy going at Splyce. It feels like in Splyce versus Fnatic, which was the game that everyone's going to go back to if they want to study Splyce, that Splyce were caught off guard when they're facing something that maybe they're not used to dealing with. Now, that said, Garen and Yuumi have been trolling around in European scrims for a while. So this isn't completely out of the woodwork, even though we've only seen this combination of it twice on the LEC stage. But it is a different animal to actually play against it. I'm wondering if that's what Rogue were trying to leverage. Let's make Splyce uncomfortable.
And it seems to have been working so far. The other important thing is that it does change the dynamic of how you have to build your team compositions. Remember, they have a Corki in the mid lane, very important when you don't have an actual marksman down bottom lane to make up for that somewhere else, and that in this case is going to be Larson on his signature Corki.
And things are only going to continue to get harder now as the Black Cleaver has come out for Woolite. Of course, not too many items in the back pocket of Vander, and some pretty substantial nerfs to Yuumi's damage on the Prowling projectile means it's going to be even longer to scale up than maybe originally intended. But once again, Inspired, the third man in this lane. I mean, we're literally just Dota 2 tri-laning right now. He is committed to spending these resources on the top side, but will be spotted out by Humanoid. And of course, Humanoid getting closer and closer to the Gunblade. Maybe that can be the difference maker to give him some kill pressure in the mid lane.
But there's also an opportunity about where Inspired wants to attack with this Rift Herald. Again, you talk about how he's basically three-manning with Rogue. He was caught out by a great ward from Splyce, so they know that he's here, so they should be able to absorb this pressure. But he can just plant this, and they can go for a plate gank.
There's also a ton of wards in the river, so any sort of play that either side tries to make is going to be extremely telegraphed. Should know Inspired is here, but one Cocoon could just mean instant death if it's on Kobbe.
Oh, goes right onto Norscairn. The passive's not going to be enough. Instantly deleted. Doesn't even need the Garen ultimate, but Vizichachi is here. He's going to spend Culling the Meek, but instantly exhausted as well, trying to dash out to safety. The Infernal Chain is locking him down, and Woolite, the execution, the sword from the sky, and Humanoid just goes right into the Meat Grinder. The stealth will save him from now, but he's in the midst of the entire team, trying to kill Inspired, just gets deleted. My God, Rogue are destroying Splyce in this exchange. They've got the Rift Herald too, and that's going to be a 4K gold lead in an instant.
And reminder that Splyce opted into that. They knew where Inspired was. They thought that they actually had the trap card with the deep ward and the teleport from Chachi, but they played their cards wrong, and it bit them in the ass.
Yeah, Norscairn instantly goes down there with Inspired making that play through a lane, so massive win for this squad. Notice Xerxes and Norscairn coming around on the flank after the turret goes down. They're going to try to pick up two.
Maybe a chance to turn 3K in favor of Rogue. Maybe Splyce can get something back. A stolen Garen ultimate. Can he turn it to Tenacity? Coming through, trying to speed him up and out to safety. Woolite trying to get away. The Ignite goes down. Woolite will fall in the end. Vander next on the list. The Cat running for its dear life. Cat versus Bear. The Cat is going to make it out.
Is able to escape, but ultimately big win across the board there for Rogue. Notice double the amount of plates taken here on their side. Big gains to be had.
I mean, the game was frankly even in gold up until that moment, and Rogue are now kind of throwing all of the predictions out the window by saying, no, if you don't challenge us, if you make a mistake, we are good enough to punish you, and that's exactly what they've done to Splyce in this early game.
And I get more and more concerned for Splyce as Chachi going to be in a 3v1 under tower.
Maybe the TP now coming in. Can he make his way out? He does not have the ultimate. Instantly deleted, and someone else is just throwing right into the meat grinder. Kabe is next. The shutdown is there. Trying desperately to kill Larssen. Humanoids on the backside. Larssen caught in the midst of the enemies. Cannot walk into Kabe without risking his life. Can he find the kill? No. Locked up. No, Larssen, are you mad, man? He actually gets it. Finn now caught there, but Vander's going to back him up. The cat, the healing, the prowling projectile. Humanoid has to run, but North Karen on the way in. The final chapter will disengage. Rogue and Splyce trading blows, but the Akali next on the list. Massive damage coming in from Finn.
Looks like it was going to be a disaster there for Splyce. Ends up being a 2-for-2 trade overall. Even once more here in this fight around the bottom lane, but the game is not being nearly as slow as we anticipated earlier on.
And frankly, Splyce have gotten very lucky with the rotation of double Cloud coming out of the Dragons, because that's now Rogue having complete control over the bottom side to get the first Dragon, and if they wanted to, rotate into the second Dragon. If these were things like Infernals and Mountains, this could spell much worse for Splyce here, but with some fast thinking and a very bold teleport from Kabe, they are able to turn this one around.
Yeah, Kabe able to outplay there for quite some time, get Larssen in a position where he's quite low, but Larssen still able to turn it around for that last second trade. The Hex Drinker Shield coming in super clutch for him in order to get that final auto attack off on the enemy carry.
And just the back end of this play, of course, a lot of disengages here, but you can see the damage start to ramp up. Humanoid caught out, and at the end of the day, Rogue honestly matching blow for blow and a very fast-paced game, which, if you're a Splyce fan, should be concerning, because we took a look into the stats with the helps of the wonderful LEC stat teams, and when the CKPN, that's combined kills per minute, regardless of size, is 0.7 or less, they're 5-0. That's Splyce City. That's where they want to be, the slower, more controlled early games. Now, when it gets hectic, you can see 7 wins, 6 losses, much closer overall. Good news for them coming into the series, hey, Rogue's a slow team. Bad news, playoff Rogue, not nearly as slow.
It means that if you run pick-based compositions or you have pick-based potential, that you can really catch Splyce off guard, because they are a slow-to-set-up team. Once they are set up, they almost always execute perfectly. But if you catch them when they're trying to do it, that's when Splyce start to fall apart.
And I think a big reason why a lot of people favored Splyce coming into this game is because Rogue are also one of our slower teams. They don't play proactive, they play reactive most of the time. It has been a very different story in this game, coming in with a very new strategy with Garen Yuumi in the bottom lane, and then also the way they've been playing to attack these side lanes repeatedly.
But let's look at the state of the map right now, because all of the outers for Splyce have fallen down, which means we're much more on an open map, and we are starting to get these big item purchase points here. Now, we said that Splyce's composition feels really good around 1 to 2 items, so they are actually going to be in their power spike, I guess? I hate that word. They are going to be in their power spike right about now, so Rogue do need to be a bit more careful about where they're attacking on this map, because Splyce will have some firepower to bite back.
I think the other things we have to consider is Splyce's comp probably does better in smaller skirmishes than they do big team fights, because they don't have a Corki in the backline pummeling damage from super far away. They have a lot of these champions that want to jump on you and blow you up quickly, whereas Rogue, I think, have more options. They have the stronger front line in order to soak up damage and go for a 5v5.
I also think, just like you said, the poke potential between a Yuumi and a Corki is really disgusting. So if Rogue ever gets stacked as a unit in a wave and then just start throwing down that poke damage repeatedly, it's just one cocoon before they're ready to jump on you.
Yeah, and how does Splyce ever clear a minion wave outside of using the culling? That's their only real anti-siege option here. So if a Baron were to come onto the table, this game would look real good for Rogue.
Oh, Rogue with Baron is really terrifying.
I mean, we've seen it. Like,
Garen just runs under your tower.
Honestly, this Garen Yuumi combo is so toxic and so oppressive, and Baron buff just makes it go from bad to worse. And the Yuumi, of course, already has the Unholy Grail, working on the Echo, but gotta hold that knock, because meanwhile in the mid lane, North Garen praying for that passive to save it today, but once again, the Garen ult just too much, shuts him down. The exhaust now coming out though. Xerxes running for his life. Prowling projectile once again will slow. Finn running in on the backside, has the extra movement speed. Stealing the Elise form, trying to jump out to safety. Clever play from Xerxes, but it's not going to be enough. Finn is on the hunt for blood, and he'll take the spider down.
You can't run from Rogue here. There's a Garen Yuumi chasing you down. There is no escape for your team. Rogue can be able to now use this minion wave, push that down through mid. Splyce still has 2 people sitting in side lanes. Rogue can get towers.
Yeah, and we talked about that Baron. That Baron is going to be spawning relatively soon in 51 seconds. and now with second tier mid down and Rogue having full access to this jungle, they have good tank resources. They're still going to burn the Baron relatively slow, and I'm not saying it's going to be a 20-minute Baron, but again, if Rogue get that with this type of composition, I think it's lights out for Splyce. That is absolute devastation.
I think all Rogue have to do is set up vision denial around this Baron, sit in a bush with a Garen Yuumi.
Cocoon.
Yeah, and then the second Norskeren runs up to you, as they've done 3 times so far this game, you instantly cocoon him, you instantly burst him down, you get a pick or two, and then you can quickly turn into a Baron and force Splyce to fight into you.
And while we look back at this replay, important to note that Rogue just playing with absolute confidence here. You know, we heard from players about nerves, confidence moving in as they moved into more high-pressure games, but looking in complete control here. The Garen Yuumi clearly very well rehearsed, and at this point, just easy to chase down these kills.
I don't want to take anything away from Rogue because I do think that they're making very smart moves, but you also then have to look at the other side and start criticizing Splyce. That's now 3 times that Norskaren's been caught out, and frankly, getting caught out like that, that cannot happen in a best of in some of the most important matches of your season.
And remember, a best of against one of the most rookie teams we've ever seen in playoffs. 0-0-0. 58.
Yeah, Vander's been around the block.
Vander's the veteran. He's here to lead the team, and evidently he's doing a damn fine job, but these guys are rookies on the playoff stage, yet they are showing up. They are going toe-to-toe with a team like Splyce that was expected to potentially be the 3rd seed for Europe at Worlds.
Yeah, you can't forget that Vander was in the summer finals last year in Madrid. Finn, as we've said before, 13th ever LEC game, not even just playoffs, now bot.
Now looking to pick a fight with Vizicachi. Remember, Spear of Shojin's going to make Vizicachi a big threat, but it's not going to matter too much if he gets taken down here. Trying to get enough Fury, Cole the Meek, but Finn just takes him out. The TP on the way in. Norskeren has to go in and try to save Humanoid. Humanoid dashing through. Coffee's there as well. Maybe they can turn this one. Larson now running for his life. Humanoid gets taken down though. Finn, he's going off. He's on a rampage. The Garen now coming in, but Inspired's on the backside. Goodbye to Kame. Right into the meat grinder, and Rogue are tearing Splyce apart.
And Splyce, what are you doing? What are these clown car teleports where you think you can hide multiple members, but you just walk face first into CC?
And now Rogue immediately get to run straight over towards this Baron. Xerxes is alive. Xerxes does have the ability to try and find a steal, but it is against the full 5-man stack of Rogue. And there's not going to be much room for error now for Xerxes.
And this is the Baron you're talking about. This is the final nail in the coffin, as if that bottom lane fight was not enough. Maybe Xerxes can find his heroic moment, but there's Finn. Can just follow him, has the Umbral dash chase on the abscond of Duck. Xerxes gonna try to turn this one, stealing away the Aatrox ult. Vizicachi now coming in, they want to take out the top laner, then they want to set their sights on the Baron. Lower and lower, Finn, quick dash over the wall, buying as much time as he can, 3K and dropping. They're not gonna be able to get to the pit, they have to pick one or the other. Xerxes, desperate, knows he needs to make his way into the pit now. 15K, getting lower and lower, can he make
he blocked it!
Over. Woolite with the hero play to turn it, he denies entry into the pit, he takes Xerxes' life, and that's the Baron for Rogue.
The perfect flash from Woolite over the wall to stop Xerxes dead in his tracks. Rogue able to swat him down immediately after, and this is the Baron buff we said. We said, no way they get it right at 20 minutes. Well, Rogue have done just that. They have come in and made a statement here in Game 1.
And again, a huge error from Splyce. They overcommit, and Rogue just closed the door on them. And now with this Baron, you're going to see how devastating this can be. You can send Yuumi and Garen now with Baron up creeps behind them. No one can stop them. Even if you send multiple members, they'll just run away from you.
And this was the time where Splyce were supposed to be in control. 1 to 2 items. They were supposed to have something going on, but it's too little too late. The Yuumi has a Luden's Echo. The Garen's got a Dead Man's Plate. There is no escaping them.
You're in full damage control for Splyce. You're picking bushes. You're trying to find uneven fights. This is like hit and run tactics League of Legends.
Well, you have to fight right now because you can't withstand the siege. Here we go.
Here we go, trying to find a way in final chapter to try to disengage, but Norskeren, he's already dead. The rest of the team now fleeing. They've been knocked apart. The coordination is falling apart for Splyce. Rogue are simply tearing through them. It's Humanoid all on his lonesome, trying desperately to fight Finn. Inspired goes up. Humanoid goes down. And Vizicachi taking up on the side. Larson finding the 1v1, and Woolite just running Xerxes down. A stolen Garen ult is not enough.
It just never ends. Rogue are unrelenting here. 23 minutes on the clock. This team is not going to stop until they put Splyce in the ground.
Like you said, live fast, die young. Splyce recognized that that was going to be the only opportunity that they would have to try to catch Rogue off guard. At this point, that's the nail in the coffin. I think Rogue have cleaned out Game 1.
And at this point, I don't think anyone can doubt them anymore in this best of 5. And plenty of people predicting a clean, confident 3-0 from Splyce. Feeling mighty foolish after the last few fights. Rogue gonna grab 2 inhibitors, the third one, the last thing left in front of them. Splyce, when this Baron buff falls away, could maybe hope for a few more moments of game time. Maybe another death rush, a heroic individual play to turn this game around, but otherwise this is a Rogue win.
The only death bush Splyce are gonna have are their own.
Again, you're going to start to see Splyce's composition really struggle now that they've got 2 inhibs down. Again, they don't have a lot of innate wave clear on the comp outside of just the culling, since there's only one range champion. So they need to really pick their moments about when they exit their base and making sure that they get both the mid and the top lane, the bot lane pushed out.
There you go. That's a fast Garen humanoid. He's locked up, but they can see the animation. Now humanoid running for his life, gonna try to get something, but the rest of the team is here. It's a slaughter. They're getting run down. Splyce will not be able to make it out of this first game. Rogue take down Cersei. Woolite on a rampage. The culling doesn't do any damage. Splyce absolutely getting ripped to pieces. Finn now godlike. Kave next on the list. They're gonna take him out. They'll give another one to Finn, and Vizichachi has to run for the hills. Time after time, people do not believe in Rogue, but time after time, they prove they are right where they deserve. They get into playoffs, and now they take down Splicing Game 1. And this is it, a dominant showing from Rogue in Game 1. More than just a Garen Yuumi, they have absolutely dismantled Splyce for their first win.
Now here's the thing, still in a best of 5, so Rogue do need to have more repeated looks. But my question is a mental one. No one expected Splyce to get clapped that hard. So is Splyce ready for that? Are they able to bounce back from this? You should say yes, they're a very experienced team. They have a very strong management behind them. But time and time again with Splyce, it's confidence, it's belief, it is finding that motivation and that momentum. Is this going to be a turning point where you see Splyce start to tilt off the face of the earth and Rogue are just riding high?
Well, you say Game 1 was a game of experimentation here. Splyce trying to play much more proactively through the early game. Rogue going for the Garen Yuumi. I think you have to remove that option. Splyce didn't seem like they had any way to deal with that pick. And then you hope banning something like that, getting a new draft, you can rewire your mental, but it's always going to be tough.
I want to go back to something Frost Stern said, though, because the Garen Yuumi is the easy thing to point at, but this felt like bigger issues. This was Rogue's fastest win this split. Huge monster performance from Rogue, but also North Garen was not on the same page. Those engages were scattered, and something went wrong on the side of Splyce.
So Kadril, I believe, said it on the analyst desk. He was talking about limited champion pools with certain members of Splyce. I'm going to go ahead and say I think North Garen has a limited champion pool with Splyce. Not that he doesn't throw many champions out, but he doesn't play that many champions effectively. He's always hovering the volley bear, but I think his go-to champions are things like the Nautilus, and when he's not on his Nautilus or his Alistar, North Garen can be punished. And I think when you have Vander versus North Garen, if Rogue want to try to run, again, these bottom lanes and really pick on him, that is an avenue of attack.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to be wanting in this type of draft here for Splyce. I think you have to go back and try to make these changes. I fully agree. The Nautilus, the All-Star for North Garen, these are the picks that work so well. It's bottom lane champions that Cersei can look to play through, that can be so impactful in later stages of the game. Quite frankly, that just wasn't it today.
And I look at it and I just wonder how much else is left for the team. This isn't a best of 1, right? It's a best of 5. They could have prepared multiple strategies for this team, but have to wonder if that was the one that they thought would win the day, that they would just smash Rogue. Has to be wondering. Let's see what the analyst desk has to say, though. For more on Game 1, let's check in with Shox, Kadril, and the Moose.
Thank you very much, I believe. Yeah, here we are. There we go. We were just as stunned watching that game, which is why we were a bit unresponsive, because we were trying to figure out what went wrong. And I think this is something I want to talk about later as well. Just as much as Rogue played well, Splyce seemed completely out of sorts. And I think that consensus was also here on the desk.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they locked in Illusion early into Yuumi so that they could have a strong bot side, but then they locked in the Garen, which I think Splyce kind of got surprised by. I think Garen Yuumi is really strong in lane. It scales super well, and then you could see in the team fights, it was pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah, if we look at the picks and bans, indeed, Finn said, we are going to try something in the first game, and we'll see how it goes. It was a resounding success. But before you know how it's going to play out, Moose, what did you think of both drafts?
So for Splyce's draft, the one thing that surprised us initially was that they went for Renekton on 3. So they were going after Finn's champion pool, essentially. They're saying we can get away with 2 bans and we have 3 supports ready for the Garen Yuumi. The weird thing over there was that they then decided to ban earlier. They have Renekton, who's good against Earlia. They have Akali who's good against Earlia. We were expecting an Aatrox ban there on 5, and then follow up with the support pick later. So that was a bit surprising on Splyce's, and I think they got punished for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think Aatrox is one of the strongest top laners in the game right now. You can see in LCK, this champ is a first pick champ. So if you're going to take away the Renekton and just ban out 2 tops, I don't see why Aatrox wasn't on your ban list. You know, if they do pick Irelia with Elise, this combo is not that strong. Sejuani was down, so they weren't going to pick Sejuani Irelia. So it really didn't make sense to me why they didn't go for the Aatrox ban.
And then we have the Garen Yuumi, and of course, on top of it's comfort picks because Yuumi was nerfed a little in her Q damage, and of course, Garen Yuumi is not something you want to play if you want to play a Kai'Sa, but it worked because they also had the Aatrox, and they also had everything else that worked for them. Talk to me about the synergy of the rogue comp.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of synergy with the comp. I think you can think of the Yuumi as an enabler, right? And once you have the Aatrox, who was behind initially, when he gets ahead, when that Aatrox gets 2 items and he has a Yuumi on him, it's one of the strongest combos in the game in teamfights. Having a Garen Yuumi or an Aatrox Yuumi, you have so many options in teamfights. And I think Larson played this game exceptionally. Like, Corki did get nerfed. He has a somewhat tough matchup after 6, but he played phenomenally. Like, he had 20 CS lead, and he was pressuring out top side when Inspired was playing bot side.
It just shows also how, when you look at kind of the change list when it comes to patch 9.16, it's very easy for us to say, oh yeah, Corki's nerfed, we're not going to see him. But we see that comfort can play such an important factor in the first game of a best of 5.
These are also the 2 teams that if you expect anyone to continue with Azir Corki, these are the 2 teams you expect the most to play those champions. And so it's nice to see that, like, Rogue is coming in prepared. They're playing comfort picks, but they also have new stuff for them, like Garen Yuumi. So they've clearly been prepping exactly for this matchup, like, and attacking Splyce in very specific ways.
So much to talk about in draft, and then let's get into the game. We said slow early game teams, they don't do that much. They're probably going to be relatively even, or Splyce is going to be a bit ahead. But no, it was very active. What do we think of the priorities of both teams, where Splyce was looking at Finn and Rogue was looking at the bottom lane to target?
So this surprised me a lot. So you're playing an Elise with an Aatrox, so you have a really strong top side 2v2, and you can see that in the bot side of the map, on Splyce's side, there's a pink ward. So that means that Inspired put bot vision for some reason, so that the Garen Yuumi could probably get the push. So he didn't really want to play top side. Xerxes got deep vision on his top side. They just literally mismatched each other. One got to kill top, one got to kill bot, which doesn't really make sense to me. If I was playing the Elise, I would want to play for top side, bring Corki into top, make sure Aatrox gets the lead, and I guess Garen Yuumi is just a scaling. But I mean, yeah, Xerxes got some kills top, and they got some kills bot as well.
And we showed that clip, but it kept going. Like, even after this, they sacrificed a whole dive and a wave on Aatrox top for, like, a Cloud Dragon earlier, which gave Sal's that tempo to be able to make the play top. So it seemed really weird that they were leaving Aatrox on a complete island to try to snowball the Garen Yuumi and play for a dragon that's, like, not even that good initially.
Yeah.
And the only reason it looked weak for Splyce is because after they got those kills, the follow-up wasn't great, especially with the Herald.
So when we look at that window then, because that's interesting to me, because we always say that Splyce is a team that knows what to do in these situations. So surely they have then read that situation. How come they dropped the ball so hard in the window that comes after that?
And talking about dropping the ball, you have a ward, so you saw the Elise. You even saw a Targon stack go to the Elise in that bush. I think Splyce pinged out the Elise in that bush like 50 times, and then somehow they get caught and they start a team fight on Rogue's terms rather than on Splyce's terms. I think once you see that Elise in the bush, you could just drop a TP behind and you start the engage. Whereas they got surprised by a Cocoon when she walked over a ward, and then, yeah, things kind of went downhill from there for Splyce.
Yeah, it was uncharacteristic because Splyce is making these mistakes with full knowledge, first of all. Second, they're playing a comp that relies super heavy on 1-3-1, and we were discussing this earlier backstage, but playing Akali against Garen Yuumi seems extremely difficult in the first place, and then to fall behind early through mistakes that are completely avoidable, there's no reason that these mistakes should be made, was extremely weird for Splyce as well. So if they continue with this, at the least fix the early game or switch them up so that they're not hard stuck on these 1-3-1 comps and they have more options at 4-5.
It's almost like, of course, I'm sure both teams did so much prep, but Splyce knows what they're good at and what their style is, and they've seen what we've seen in that they are better at playing Rogue style than Rogue is, right? So how much will this mess up their mental preparation going into this now that everything's been turned on its head?
I think Splyce has enough players that have been in playoffs that they should be able to bounce back from this. They know what they're good at. They were third place in LEC contesting for second because they know what they're good at. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was them going, okay, can we win with this, or is this a stylistic advantage against Rogue? Their comp was very similar to something that we would play against Splyce, and we were able to execute that because that's our style. So I can see them thinking Rogue is similar to us, therefore they'll be weak against 1-3-1 as well. I would hope that now they'd go back to playing more Splyce comforts.
Yeah, and I know it is, of course, enticing to talk about Splyce because we hadn't expected them to go down in this first game, but now Now let's turn it on the other side and look at Rogue and how well they played. Let's look at a couple of mid-game team fights. Now, when you look at Rogue, how they play, and statistically, in terms of how deterministic their goal difference at 15 is, they score extremely high, meaning if they have a lead at 15, they are going to keep pushing it and most likely win the game. And that then comes back to what we talked about before. How secure will they be? How much confidence will they have, Kedro? It looks like a lot.
Well, I think the problem they've had this game, it felt like Northstrom was kind of getting caught out before every fight started. You saw the one in top and now the one in mid.
Not
it feels
a problem
like
for Rogue.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like Rogue gets the engages they want and Splyce is sort of autopiloting into them. I think Splyce needs to sort of, wake up a bit, be more attentive on where the Elise is, where they want to start the fights, and be more proactive in a sense where they want to start the fights.
Yeah, completely agree. It's nice to see that Rogue is stepping up and these players aren't scared of pulling the trigger when needed, but Splyce is also making it very easy for them, especially in this game. It wasn't hard for Elise to find a lot of these picks on Volleyball, for example. So I want to see Splyce step up more, and then I want to see Rogue keep that aggression up and keep punishing them for it.
Yeah, great point. Here we see Finn Heo was talking to us in a pre-game interview as well. We have deemed him kind of the X factor. He can make big plays, and maybe Splyce thought he's too much of an X factor because they invested a lot of resources in the top lane. Splyce chose red side. What do you think they're going to go for in terms of bans?
Well, I think you have to drop a Yumi ban now, or you have to try to drop a Garen ban, sorry. I'm not sure what they're going to drop for those bans, though, because they did ban out the Kiana, which I think is really important. I think you should drop the Sejuani. I think Sejuani is not that important in the meta right now. I think the Sejuani only works with, like, Irelia and Renekton, but you're playing things like Akali and Renekton already, so I think just dropping the Sejuani ban, swapping it out for a Garen or a Yumi, and then adapting to that. But I think their first rotation of Akali is really good.
Another priority.
I completely agree. I think drop the third ban on one of the Garen or the Yumi, and then see how Rogue adapts to that, because I think it'll be easy for Splyce as well to play against the picks that they've probably practiced against in scrims as well after that.
Well, we've been thrown a curveball here, and as has Splyce in their first ever playoffs, Rogue are off to a great start. We'll see if they can continue surprising after this.
Rogue looking to prove themselves time and time again. As Splyce on the opposite side, expected 3-0, need to prove they're dominant, and it is all going to be defined here in this best of 5. Oh, goes right onto North's Garen. The passive's not going to be enough. Instantly deleted. Doesn't even need the Garen ultimate. But Vizichachi is here. He's going to spin, calling the Meek, but instantly exhausted as well. Trying to dash out to safety. The Infernal Chains blocking him down. And Woolite, the execution, the sword from the sky. And Humanoid just goes right into the Meat Grinder. The stealth will save him from now, but he's in the midst of the entire team. Trying to kill Inspire. Just gets deleted. Now looking to pick a fight with Vizichachi. Remember, Spear of Shojin is going to make Vizichachi a big threat, but it's not going to matter too much if he gets taken down here. Trying to get enough Fury. Call the Meek, but Finn just takes him out. The TP on the way in. North's Garen has to go in to try to save Humanoid. Humanoid dashing through. Kavi's there as well. Maybe they can turn this one. Larson now running for his life. Humanoid gets taken down. The Finn, he's going off. He's on a rampage. The Garen now coming in, but Inspires on the backside. Goodbye to Kave. Right into the Meat Grinder, and Rogue are tearing Splyce apart. This is it. A dominant showing from Rogue in game 1. More than just a Garen Yumi. They have absolutely dismantled Splyce for their first win.
Hi, I'm Pringles. I'm Chips. Wait, are we doing this Mac versus PC thing? Guess so. Then I am the Mac of the chips. Cool. Then I'm the PC. Perfect for gaming. Easy to eat, no greasy hands. Wait, I'm into gaming too. You mean like into the keyboard crumbled? No. Or into the TeamSpeak rustling? No, I'm into that new frag LOL thing. Well then, GG, my friend.
No, we're doing the clap first.
Answering questions in Sneak. Hello, Pedro.
Oh, well, thank you very much. How are the children?
It's time for our question of the day. What would be your dream Medivedi intro?
What about fireworks?
But what about a choir?
Zipline.
Or a choir?
What about parachutes?
But a choir!
Welcome back, everybody. It's LEC Summer 2019. It's playoffs. It's Rogue versus Splyce. And to the surprise of many, Rogue are up 1-0. And not because of just some cheese. They absolutely demolished Splyce. And now I think the #1 question on everyone's mind as we get ready for picks and bans is, what do Splyce show us in Game 2?
A Yuumi ban.
That's the first thing. Then our second biggest question is, does Rogue have anything else up their sleeve? What is it going to be here? So we get into our second draft of the day.
Reminder that it is Splyce again taking the red side, so I don't think we're going to see the same draft ran back. I do expect there to be some sort of pivot here around this Garen Yuumi, and I'm curious if Garen Yuumi is going to become the Sonateric of the LCS, where you have to have a counter to it or you must ban it.
Have to find out. For now, everything remaining the same. Will we have the legendary salty run back? There she is. Nope, there it is. All right, Olaf and now the Yuumi taken off the board. Rogue are going to have to show us something different on the bottom side of the map.
And they're going to replace Yuumi with either the Kiana or the Sejuani. So the question is, do they really want to heavy down on the Inspired Jungle Pool? Now with that Sedge pick open, what does it change? Our initial expectations for this draft were going to be that Akali is that #1 pick. So they're going to lock that one in for Larson. And now the Sejuani could be a really good option here for Xerxes.
See, this is where we were wrong, Ender. It wasn't about the Akali, it was about Garen Yuumi. They are higher priority.
How did we not see this? All right, well, in the meantime, of course, we now see the Kai'Sa locked in on the opposite side, paired as well with the Sylas. Already has one good ult to steal away in the Akali. If the Sejuani's locked in too, it'll make sure that Xerxes, if he opts to take that champion, does have some high power ultimates to pick up.
This is a much more standard draft now that we've kind of taken all the wrenches out of the Garen Yuumi. That said, Rogue's first 3 picks, having 2 melee champions in Akali and Aatrox paired with a Sejuani is disgusting. It is a really good draft in just the first 3 looks that you get out of it.
It sets Rogue up to play around the solo laners and play around the top side of the map very early on now. Expecting a Nautilus or an Alistar here for Norse Garen in the bottom lane. Pair that up alongside Kabi's Kai'Sa. Very, very strong in order to stack those plasma stacks. And let's be honest, if Humanoid didn't lock in a support here for Norse Garen, there were going to be those 2 bans coming his way in the next phase.
And now as we head into this next phase, I'm curious if Splyce are going to double down to make Norse Garen effective and ban away a potential Sivir. Now, Sivir was hit on 916, but she still is very good into the Nautilus, and it is one of the champions that Woolite plays.
And additionally, last time we saw Rogue up against this bottom lane, I believe it was Norse Garen kind of weaving a hook around a minion to catch out a level 1 Woolite, to kill him very early on as Ezreal in the lane, something you never expect to see happen for an Ezreal in the laning phase. So Rogue need to be careful about this lane, give a lot of respect over to it. But on the opposite side, Splyce have probably one of the most terrifying early game top sides to deal with when a Sejuani is paired up with the Malian champions, as you mentioned earlier, Frost.
Rogue definitely have the power top side. Now I think they round it out and match scaling alongside Splyce. Give me a scaling ADC. The likes of the Sivir, I think, as you mentioned, could be very strong because Splyce are already setting up for very big late game teamfight damage. A Sylas, no matter where he goes, has great access to ultimates in this type of game, and the Kai'Sa is going to be very, very powerful.
I do want to pay attention to the Morgana ban. Yes, Morgana is decent into Nautilus because of how the Black Shield is going to work with the CC, but usually Morgana is paired in tandem with a Caitlyn. Now, I don't know if Woolite's going to continue to grab the Caitlyn, but this is something to pay attention to in a best of 5. It may give us a way that they have the Morgana Caitlyn prepared for Rogue.
For now, however, the Gnar will be the pick, and now it's going to be a Tom Kench.
I said match the scaling. Now they're really trying to make it happen here. The Kog'Maw with that protection going to be pretty strong. Interesting to see how it fares in this 2 versus 2 lane. You have a lot of HP buildup on the side of Splyce, so going for the on-hit itemization is going to be really, really strong on a champion like the Kog'Maw, and he has the front line to keep him beefy and keep him safe.
And the first Kog'Maw of Summer, it's been a long time since we've seen that champion. It looks like it will be now the Azir locked in for Humanoid. So once again, fighting fire with fire, matching scaling with even more scaling now on the side of Splyce.
So yeah, forget game 1. Completely different match this time around. Game 1 was about fast early action from Rogue, was about the Garen Yuumi, about popping off around that lane. This game is all about the scaling. Late game teamfight damage, 80 carries, mid laners going to be hugely, hugely important here. There's going to be a much different look and a much more standard look for both these 2 teams.
And I feel like it's going to be about execution in these skirmishes and in these team fights. And my eyes are really on Norse Garen. He gets one of his signature picks of the Nautilus. He is a much stronger Nautilus player than I think he is pretty much anything everything else, and he is so pivotal to getting a hold of Woolite. When you have a Tahm Kench, when you have a super tank of a Sejuani standing in front of you, Woolite can plant his feet and just be devastating, while Aatrox and Akali are blitzing into the backline and destroying everything. Norscarin needs to be on point here.
Yeah, Norscarin has the ability to start off fights and dive in deep, while the rest of his backline has self-heal tools. So Splyce have the ability to go in, they have the tools to go out as well, whereas Rogue are just getting geared up to go for that big front-to-back team fight first.
And it was an explosive game one. Rogue coming through and dominating to be a different picks and bans. Once again, new picks from the side of Rogue, an old friend, someone we haven't seen at all this summer in the Kog'Maw. Paired now with a nerfed Tahm Kench. Will it be enough to continue their dominance over Splyce in the best of 5? Something we're going to have to find out, something we have to look forward to as the players get ready and start to load into the game. But of course, before we get into the action, let's hear a little bit from Splyce's coach backstage.
Duke, you decided to ban Yuumi this time around, so do you feel like this is what cost you the game?
Yep.
Okay, well, great answer. And you also decided to pick red side once again, even though you lost in game 1, so can you give me the reasoning behind this?
I mean, the thing it doesn't affect much of our game plan. It's just that we can scout it if they had something prepared with Yuumi. I know that this Yuumi Garen thing is now spreading in Europe, and we were not sure if they were playing it. Unfortunately, they do, and now we just gonna have kind of the same game plan, but by removing this kind of cheesy strategy that we didn't have much counter to it.
All right, well, we'll see if it pays off in game 2. Now back to casters.
So we removed one Bizarre champion in the Yuumi to pick up another for Rogue in the likes of the Kog'Maw. Now over in the LPL, Kog'Maw is actually played a lot. I do want to point out Woolite's rune setup, however. He went for the Lethal Tempo as well as the Inspiration, so probably looking for the Biscuits, which have been nerfed, and then trying to get that late game power of having that attack speed. Now in the LPL, they actually play it with Resolve, and they play it with Press the Attack, so much more a lane-focused Kog'Maw build. So this one with the Tahm Kench, I think Woolite's going to try to cruise through this lane, maybe make use of his W whenever it's up to get some poke damage down, but otherwise play on the back foot.
And we do talk about how Kog'Maw does scale very well into the late game, mainly because of the range on his W and that percent HP damage. But as you mentioned, you definitely do well, especially once you pick up one item. Because he goes for on-hit builds traditionally, he does have the ability to outfight you off of that first big purchase, whereas Akaisa's going to want to build 2 items before she can start evolving her spells.
Yeah, and there we go. Thank you, observers, or excuse me, graphics guides, for showing us Woolite's rune page here. So again, the nerfed Biscuits, as well as having access to the stopwatch, a very defensive setup from this Kog'Maw. But again, he can be spec'd multiple ways to be really aggressive in just a Boolean lane as we continue to see him throughout playoffs.
And I'm personally excited to see what the build path is going to be, what he's going to look towards on a team comp, or up against a team comp like Splyce's. For now, though, and as you check in across the lanes, no surprise to see the Azir still with pressure in the mid lane. Of course, Azir did get hit on this patch, that Q cooldown, nerfed by 2 seconds at max rank, 2 seconds at first level the same, and I believe then nerfed through the rest. So overall, pretty big hit to his potential damage output.
You also have to remember that the Q cooldown ties into his escape tool as well. So if he goes forward with the Q, being able to reactivate that to go along his E and follow his soldier away, he does have a little bit more time that he has to wade through. Now, I would like to look at the top lane pretty quickly for a moment here, because Gnar is a ranged champion. You could say, wait, he should be able to bully Aatrox, should be able to push him in the early laning phase. But if you look at how his jungler is pathing, it started topside and went down for Norscarin. So Chachi wants to allow Finn to push this in underneath his tower so that Chachi won't be vulnerable to an early gank from the Sejuani Aatrox combo.
Oh, Larson. I'm not entirely sure how this has happened, but
get in your place.
I'm just gonna assume he was outplayed. All right, a little action there. We might want to get a little picture-in-picture replay on that one.
So remember when you were saying Larson wasn't a super flashy player? Well, when he gets his hands on the Akali, he likes to make the flashy plays.
Now the thing is that Larson will always fight you over CS. We used to talk about Uzi and how Uzi will contest you for every single minion. Larson loves farming and he loves contesting for that. So again, you don't normally see those flashy plays from him, but in lane, I bet he's probably one of the most obnoxious laners to face.
And it's only going to get more obnoxious too, because let's wait 4 or 5 minutes until Inspired hits level 6 too. You know, before that flash comes back up, we're going to be looking for a gank around that middle lane. The CC from the initial Akali charge in, try and set up for that kill, should leave Humanoid exposed.
And honestly, in the last game, Inspired was kind of the guy that we need to keep our eyes on. Before we talk about that, take a look at the replay here. So just honestly, just fantastic trading. And it looks like, I think Humanoid fully aware that he was going to take the bad end of that trade, trying to get CS, but definitely did not expect to burn flash.
He also then just walked straight back into Larson. So that was just a huge blunder by him. He got out of the trade. He could have reset, could have TP'd back in the lane. Instead, he's like, no, let me trade you when you're like twice as much HP than me.
I'm going to say well played by Larson, but I think there's probably some justifiable criticism.
Flash.
Cersei is going to find the lockup immediately, though. Will hook to Tahm Kench. That's going to be bad news. Vander Still with the flash available, forced to use the exhaust. The TP now coming bottom side. Who is on the way in? Looks like Finn coming down, trying to lay some damage. Northscarin could be in trouble, but overall, bit aggressive there to burn the TP.
Rogue really wanted to make that play because Chachi had just TP'd back into the lane. Unfortunately for them, Splyce hadn't actually used the summoners to make that play happen. They will still be able to try and deny underneath the tower, but it was a hard one to really punish for a kill.
And the nice thing is that as you can see up onto the top side of the map, the wave was actually pushed forward. So while Finn did make his TP cross map, because he did it with a prepped wave, he's actually not going to lose much here. It is on a cannon wave, he's going to be able to walk up and not miss any minions.
That's because the cannons soak up so much more auto attacks from the tower. As soon as that first minion goes down, tower's going to switch over the autos onto that monster, or minion rather, and don't think Spin got it, but he's going to get everything else.
Still an okay spot to be. Going to soak up some of this. Hasn't lost too much overall to pay for that price of the TP on the bottom side. I do want to shift attention kind of back to the junglers as we get a little bit closer to these level 6s, these big potential plays, because last game it felt like Inspired on the Elise was kind of unleashed. For the first time in a long time, it felt like we really saw him pop off in the early game. And I'm curious to see if he's going to be able to have the same impact now on the Sejuani.
It's going to be about how the mid lane feeds into that priority for him to have impact. Now, Sejuani has great river control, and with Larson still have access to flash, whereas Humanoid does not. This is why Northscarin has to be here. Yeah, supports do tend to hang around the mid lane as Vander is actually in Fog of War after they're back to lay down vision, but it's also because Splyce need to cheat priority to allow Humanoid to push out this wave by having someone in the back pocket to protect him in case Rogue go aggressive.
And you saw Rogue were very aware of this as well, bringing up Vander and Inspired, considering the ability for them to try and make a play themselves. Not going to go for it in the end, and you'll see Kabe using his TP to get back into bottom lane. Woolite held on to his, which could be important later on when he's trying to get a really good reset and then try to set up a play around the Sejuani.
Inspired on the bottom side, the flash forward, the tongue. Northscarin could be in trouble, but he can't just hook his way back out to safety. Bit over aggressive there.
Okay.
And you can see the idea is that Kabe and Northscarin are missing the flash, so you understand what Vander's trying to force, and especially when you have an Infernal, both Rogue and Splyce want to play around control over bottom side. But I think it's just over-eager, because why not just wait for Inspire to have access to level 6, then try your hand at that gank?
So now it's going to happen again. Xerxes trying to come through lane. There is a ward that'll spot him out at 3v3.
Hook is there. Already now burned. Woolite now going to try to step forward. Good damage coming in from Northscarin. Hook gone, though. Has to be careful. Only 3 stacks, though. Not going to be able to land the stun. That's going to be disastrous. Inspired. Forced to dash out to safety.
And Rogue are overplaying their hand right now. They're trying too hard to make this work, and they're losing a lot of time for Inspired. Now, that said, Inspired was waiting for his camps to spawn on the bottom side. He now has access to that red buff. He will pick up level 6 very soon, if not off of this camp. But now Splyce, shoe on the other foot. They have control over the bottom river. They can choose if they want to disrupt Inspired on his red or try to gain priority over Infernal.
One of the things we see a lot around the 7-8 minute mark is junglers trying to get pressure for their bottom lanes to pick up that Infernal. There is a ward on that map, though.
But this is what I want people to pay attention to, and it's actually what's happening in the mid lane right here. Akali is pushed forward because, again, Humanoid's still waiting on access to his flash, and this is why Rogue are over-forcing the play. If they actually just waited for Larson to get priority over mid lane and then Inspire to farm it up to level 6, just rotate with your Akali and your Sejuani and force that bottom lane play instead of wasting all of that time and Vander's flash.
Yeah, Inspired should hit 6 off of this crab. He's a very short window where he can look for a play here. The minion wave looks a little bit too big, though. Xerxes also coming around, so the window ultimately going to be missed.
Humanoid, though, now starting to walk up right into enemy vision. We'll be able to place down a ward. Uncontested sees, of course, the Scuttle Crab. In the meantime, we'll also use the Scryer's Bloom, trying to get as much information as possible before he comes back to lane. Feeling a bit more comfortable, though, as Xerxes is right behind him, working on that red buff, presumably close to his level 6 as well. Already has it. Of course, bad news, no mana for him at this stage, so we'll not really be able to threaten, just kind of shadowing, hoping to support.
But Splyce are in a much better position than they were for the last 5 minutes because Azir now has access to his flash. He's going to feel much more confident to actually use his wave clear to contest for the minion wave in this mid lane, and Xerxes will be able to clear out his jungle, probably get it back, and again, we're going to start playing for that priority over bot side.
And if this reset were to come out first from Vander, he can actually path through mid lane and get control. One play that Rogue could look to go for, if they reset Inspired now as well, is coming off of a reset. What you can actually try to do is you can pull up through this mid lane, cheat priority, bringing your jungler and your support to help push in that lane. And then also with the TP we're seeing right now from this Kog'Maw, you could look to get the control over the lane, go for that Infernal, because you know that Kabe can't go back to base and get back onto that because he used his TP earlier.
Have to see exactly what Rogue want to opt for in terms of plays overall. I felt like they were ahead of the curve just about every time in the previous game. See if they continue to match the pace as we get a little bit later. For now, things going quite well actually for Woolite on the bottom side of the map. Obviously, a lot of attention paid over to his lane. He's been able to hold a freeze for a lot of the game.
There's a small window here. Kabe doesn't have his TP yet. He's just made his back. Inspired is just in time in this wave. As soon as Vander and Woolite push this up, I don't know if Rogue are feeling bold, but they could try to force the Infernal before Splyce get their feet here.
Oh, going to be a really difficult call, though. You can see Xerxes already trying to path down. Does not want to walk into Fog of War, but enough vision there to stop this. Larson now going in fishing for the 1v1 against Humanoid. He's going to get it first blood! And Finn's coming down too, so it's not even like Xerxes can overextend for the fight. If he does, he might go down. Xerxes stealing one half of the ultimate there.
Everyone is talking about Humanoid, but remember the name Larson, because this could be the series that this guy pops off from just stable to flashy.
Just incredible. Want to see the 1v1 one more time, but now it's no longer a cheat, Frostguard. Now they no longer have to go for an ambitious dragon play. It's free because the mid laner is dead.
And I do want to compliment Rogue. They used their teleports correctly. They cheated the priority just as Ender was talking about and displayed with us. But again, you can still just play through priority in this mid lane. You have kill pressure here. Larson is flexing it on Humanoid. So while Rogue do get the spoils of the Infernal, it's still not set up as perfectly as it could be.
And in that replay, you saw Larson going in low on HP. You also can't see the Shroud in the replay, unfortunately, though, but was being able to dodge away from a lot of the damage coming through from Humanoid. Woolite now has to run. Ultimate will connect. Kabe, is he going to fish for anything else? Good that he doesn't go in. There's control ward in this bottom bush here for Inspired. Now top lane Chachi. Megadar is going to come out just in time. Finn forced to flash away. Not sure if he needed to do that one, but had to respect the potential for the combo. The big gnar into the wall could have been disaster. Yeah, if he doesn't flash that, I'm pretty sure he just instantly goes down right now. Bot lane, Kabe goes in, he's exhausted, but it's not going to matter already. The AD carry's dead. Vander's next on the list. The rest of the team chasing Kog'Maw. The passive will not be
double
enough.
TP.
With a double TP, Splyce gonna get a taste of their own medicine.
Here comes
Is
the
it
Kali.
just like game one? And in come the soul laners. Can they be the difference makers? Now Splyce TPing as well. Kabe's gonna grab another kill. It's now an absolute bloodbath. Larson gonna try to fish for something, but there's no damage left. Kali does not have the cooldowns to take this fight. Is forced to walk away, and Splyce come out on top. Larson's ult was still on CD. Humanoids too, but he has now made his way down into the bottom lane. It is Splyce able to come away with the victory in that fight.
And that could have been disaster. You think if this is an Akali that picks up 2 more kills in that rotation, that might be game over. So good hold from Splyce to absorb the TP from the Akali coming down, to force her off the play, and to pick up these plates on the back end.
Also now trying to snowball Kabe 2-0-1 with the Storm Razor finished off right here. Not going to waste his time. Any scaling options with the Manamune. He wants power and he wants it now. Makes a lot of sense when you look at how the match was going. Blade of the Rune King for the Kog'Maw not yet completed. Maybe Splyce will continue to capitalize. For now, it is just pressure in that mid lane. Vizicachi going to be forced off here as the lane swap comes out. Yeah, as this lane swap comes, Splyce's primary goal is going to be picking up the Rift Herald for themselves. Need Humanoid to stay alive, though. He really wants to put down a lot of pressure because he knows his teammates are very close. What he doesn't know is Inspired is in this bush.
Yeah, I actually do. Oh, I'll hold it.
Using the ultimate there, Northscarin has now been caught out and taken down. Rogue. It's a huge play there from Rogue because they are down in numbers on that side of the map. But because Kabe went top lane and because Inspired was able to sneak in, a flashless Northscarin has nowhere to go. He thinks he has his teammates there in order to walk in and deny the vision, but he gets punished.
And it's so textbook from Splyce. Remember, they were the one who initiated the lane swap. They had numbers advantage on the bot side, but Rogue continuously catching them off guard, where Splyce just think they're playing it by the book.
And honestly, just overall, it's such a clean play. You see the Kog'Maw passive not going to be the big difference maker. And you can see why Rogue starts to turn here. They know their solo laners are on the way. They know that they're strong. But Akali without an ultimate, with no Gunblade, is just not enough of a threat. Yeah, they're able to get the one onto Northscarin, right? But then they have to run for the hills. My other question is, was the Devourer on cooldown? We weren't able to see the lead up into that fight, but he wasn't able to save his AD carry. There's also a stopwatch available for that Kog'Maw. Neither were used, and ends up being a big win for Splyce. Now stolen ultimate as well from the Sejuani. Of course, Vision will spot Xerxes moving his way into this lane. They'll know that Splyce have 3 committed onto the top side. And for now, Splyce do have gold in their favor. Of course, the Infernal in favor of Rogue, but you can see Xerxes and Kabe actually starting to pull ahead in terms of individual gold.
And this was the initial play set up for Splyce before they got cut out in front of the Rift Herald. It was force the swap up top, so you have the numbers advantage, you get there first, you get the push priority, and then you walk down, take control of River, and start this Rift Herald up.
And even though the bot lane from Rogue has now come up topside, would be an easy pickup if they were to start up the Herald because Inspired was bottom side. But now they're delaying. They don't know where the Sejuani is, so instead of picking it up, now Inspired has the time to make his way back top.
And the concern is, of course, that Rift Herald takes a very long time to take down. So you almost need perfect information before you start it because teams have such a long lead-up time to contest of this objective.
And you have to think, as Splyce opt not to start it, that they might remember what happened in Game 1, where they did 90% of the work and Rogue were simply able to walk in and take that one away.
Now I'm just feeling like Splyce are a little bit skittish. You know, they have massive pressure in mid lane, top lane too, before Kabe was wanting to go back to base. After, you know, a losing fight and a blunder in that river, honestly, they are not willing to make the play.
And they actually missed their window because this Infernal Drake is going to be spawning very quickly here. So again, the initial top side is usually you swap up here, you take Rift Herald, and by the time that the dragon spawns, you're on the bottom side of the map ready to play for it. But we've extended the play quite significantly.
Chachi pulled back. Gonna go for the double bounce, but Xerxes on the way in. Finn fishing for a bit more damage. Now forced to ult. Is he gonna... Finn keeps walking forward like he's trying to fight something, but there's nobody there with him. The rest of his team, however, will start the Herald.
Yep, they're going to be able to pick that up with ease. Vischachi too low to go for that tower dive. Now Splyce would like to turn this into an Infernal pickup, but we're still 10 seconds away from that. A couple members from Rogue can reset. Woolite has TP. They're going to look to try and contest that objective too, I think.
And again, another early game where it feels like Rogue are actually controlling Splyce. Now, Splyce do go ahead and start the Infernal. We talked about how Woolite has the TP. He's instead going to go topside, so it actually looks like Rogue aren't even going to risk their chances. They say, we don't have vision control over bot side river. We have all of our gold expended topside. We can instead try to trade this Infernal for a tower.
I do think the Rift Herald top may be a little bit of an overcommitment. I think they pick this up pretty much regardless of if they have Herald or not. Yes, they can use it to try and push in for that next tower, but realistically, I'd love to see that used on mid lane.
I actually think it's so they can get a cheat into the mid lane unless they try to catch out Chachi here, kill him, and force down second.
Finn now locked up immediately. The CC is there. Kabe just leaps in, and the shutdown comes out for Splyce. Rogue cannot cheat to the mid lane anymore, but instead will focus on this top lane tower, seeing so many members committed into the bot lane. Humanoid pushing in onto Larson, but will not find a kill.
Mid lane, bot lane, Splyce have a lot of pressure. Top lane, though, they will lose a second tower. So Rogue are going to make up a lot of gold off of this play. Ultimately, bot lane still will be traded in favor of Splyce. They picked up the Infernal as well, so Splyce can be relatively happy with that series of events.
But overall, I still favor Rogue here. Taking 2 towers for Finn's life, like, I'll roll those dice every single time.
On the opposite side, though, of course, Splyce still holding on to about a 1k gold lead, matching the Infernal, so all is not lost. And Xerxes looking good so far. 2-0-3 on the Silas, almost level 11, and a lot of potential scary ults for him to steal as we get later in the game.
And later is better here. Both these teams, no scaling options either way, and that's why I think the Infernal later on can be very valuable for the side of Splyce.
Now as we continue forward, I mean, it's hard for me to know exactly where to place 100% of the credit this game. Guys, it's difficult. Because on the one hand, I feel like Rogue have been playing very well. I feel like Splyce have matched pretty well in the last few plays, punishing Finn for overstaying on the bottom side. But now I feel like we get the first really big reset, where neither team has 100% clear, easy objective to take. We'll have to see where they want to focus their attention.
The issue is that Splyce's carry, Kabe, is actually in between items. So while there's always the potential that you find a pick, you immediately blow someone up. I actually think Splyce are going to play a little bit slower until Kabe reaches that second item, which he should be very close to. But you can see him hanging out in topside jungle. He's just waiting for Finn to push the wave into him.
Oh, and now Kabe. And here's the thing. Every time I see this Kaisen game, I'm just waiting for that aggressive leap in. But of course, Finn's still terrifying. Something you still have to respect is the Aatrox, of course, was not banned away at this time, despite a good performance in the previous game. Entirely credited to the Yuumi. Vischachi going to get the Meganar, throwing Larson right back. Xerxes now on the way in. Is he going to use the full range ultimate here? Larson's still fearlessly stepping forward, knowing he has the mobility to get out.
Looked like he was able to cancel the animation of the Meganar right there on the second hop, so almost no room for reaction there out of Larson to knock him in there. Now 3 members of Rogue in the mid lane. Finn coming around as well. They want to brute force through this tower. Just Norscarin and Humanoid. Not a lot of defensive stats there. Fishing for the hook into the bush. Will not find anyone, but tier 1 in the eyes of Rogue. It looks like they're going to continue to just knock down these towers. In the meantime, Splyce have 2 members on the bottom side, but they're just chasing for an Akali. They don't really have enough there to break a tier 2, and Love Splyce want to commit here in the mid lane. Hook goes wide, anticipating a sidestep that just was not there. Woolite not afraid, knowing that Tom catches in the area.
And part of the reason why Rogue are able to just brute force so much damage on that tower is, again, Kabe is searching for farm. And anytime you have Humanoid and Kabe sitting in the same lane, they are eating gold away from each other. So these 2 carries are constantly going to be trying to dodge each other until they find their itemization, and that means that they're at an inherent numbers disadvantage. So good job for Rogue to recognize that Splyce didn't have the numbers where they needed, and just to walk it up mid and start punching through that mid tower.
And for now, we'll see if Splyce can trade back, get a tower of their own. You see Xerxes just kind of throwing the ultimate out there, I believe running out of time to utilize it. We'll try to steal another ultimate shortly.
But take a look at the minimap. The same thing is happening. Humanoid is now kicked up towards the top side of the map, Kabe sitting in mid lane, and Rogue have this option. We either play for bot tower or we play for mid tower. They're going to be out of position, and we're probably going to get damage on either one.
And there's also the Tahm Kench on the side of Rogue. So playing for these side lane towers when you have control over mid, using that to quickly collapse on a side lane like this bottom lane where the tower's already down to 50% is a play that Rogue can be looking for, especially before the Baron spawns. And once you take this mid lane outer turret, it becomes much easier.
Well, that would be the mid lane outer tower. Things are going to get a lot easier as the audience is now in agreement. And I think now the question is, what else can Rogue do? In the previous game, we saw them kind of just roll over so many back-to-back skirmishes. This game, I think, is going to require a little bit more kind of intelligent setup than the previous one.
So both teams at this point in the game are probably feeling pretty solid. Rogue, they're in control of the game. They just took down mid tower. That feels great. Splyce, though, recognized that the mid tower was going to go down. Again, you were in between items on Kabe. Splyce know that they don't want to take a team fight right now when they're not strong. So Splyce want to slow down the game, continue to funnel that gold, pick up those items, then they're going to feel much more confident. Whereas Rogue, onus is a bit on them at this moment. They can be a bit more aggressive, they can be a bit more flashy in terms of looking for these plays and using that Abyssal Voyage.
And for now, you see the three-man core grouped up. That is Woolite, Vander, and Inspired now looking to take mid-prio, lay down a little bit of vision, set themselves up to go for something a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more flashy, potentially. And now as we look across the rest of the lanes, we're seeing Finn collapse as well. Of course, he has been spotted out here, but it looks like with a Cloud Drake spawning, still enough for Rogue to commit this many members and look for it, not afraid of giving up pressure elsewhere.
It's not necessarily just about the Cloud Drake, it's also very much about this last standing outer tower. So the Cloud Drake is actually just a cherry on top.
And the huge benefit for Rogue, because they knocked down this outer turret here in the mid lane, is they can walk up very far, catch that wave early, push through it, and then have the control. You see Humanoid doesn't have members, so you have to sit underneath his tower. And right now, Rogue are making a TP play behind Vizichachi top.
Vizichachi needs to make his way out. Mininar is on the way. Has to be careful. Using the hop early is going to be disastrous. Good dodge out from Larson. Vizichachi now in mini form. No stats left, and that means no life.
They might just go into the Baron now, too, because Rogue, they made this huge bait play where they forced Splyce multiple members onto the bottom side of the map. Then this flank TP to get that quick kill top lane. They're starting this up, and Splyce are nowhere to be seen.
And Kabi took his time to take the Scuttle Crab, it looks like, based on the mini-map. The rest of the team now moving in. Northscaran already using the hook. Vision goes down over the wall. Finn waiting on the backside, wants to stop Xerxes from getting in. Woolite can't afford to be the body blocker this time, but doesn't need to be. A fantastic ulti going in on Humanoid. The Azir is dead. Larson's invisible. They try to lock him up. Vander saved the day, but that means Woolite is vulnerable. No Tahm Kench Devour for a few more seconds, but it's not going to matter. Massive damage on the Kabi. He's exhausted, and he's dead. Shut down for Larson.
A brilliant move from Rogue all the way across the map. It starts with the pressure on the bottom side of the map. Now a hook. They might get Finn.
Xerxes wants to get something. The TP coming in. Vizichachi on the backside. The Mininar can look to chase down here. The double bounce if he goes off of one of his teammates' head. Inspired has to respect it. The hook is going to go wide. However, Vizichachi can't keep chasing on his lonesome. He's the only one who can step forward.
Splyce are able to trade that kill in the end there. But I love the Rogue we're seeing here in playoffs. It feels completely different. This was a team that was timid in the regular season. They were never the ones making the proactive play. They were always playing to the whims of their opponents, always reacting. Now this team is on the offensive, and Vizichachi's in trouble.
Has to get out of there. Meganar now coming in, has to flash to safety. And what was he? Okay, explain. Why?
I'm about to say the same thing. While Rogue are kind of finding their confidence, finding their form, and finding their final evolution. On the other hand, Splyce looking very much out of sorts. We talk about the mental game, and it is fairly early in this best of 5, only in game 2, but you're starting to see some of those cracks of Northscaran, of Chachi, of Humanoid, kind of making these decisions that you don't really equate to Splyce's consistency that we saw in regular split. Maybe the pressure is getting to them.
I love the approach here from Rogue in this fight. Finn coming in around the flank, and even though the Azir Wall tried to divide that fight earlier, Woolite, with the extra range from his W, is able to dish out the damage to knock out the two primary carries of Splyce. Now, ultimately, Splyce able to turn it around here. I think Finn was trying to reset to then TP back in towards the Baron. We've got another fight!
Mid lane, Northscaran's going to go down one more time. Kabi could be next on the list. Larson now chasing forward. It's a very fed Akali. Long-range ulti will not connect. Xerxes secures Kabe's retreat.
But time and time again, it's Northscaran overextended in the mid lane, getting caught off, and you can't do that when you're against an enemy Sejuani. Every single time, Inspired is going fishing for that, and he's finding it.
Now tier 2 in the sights of Rogue. Humanoid doing what he can on the top side of the map to get something back in return, but honestly, Rogue just now so far ahead. Of course, the gold's still relatively close, however.
The issue is that Chachi doesn't have TP, so Rogue are completely fine to overextend, if you will, into that mid lane, be that far forward and pressure that mid tower, because the big engage in Gnar doesn't have the TP to look for the flank.
Tower going down there to minions. Check this out in the mid lane one more time. We missed the initial setup for it, but I think it's Inspired just coming through around the corner. They have the global of the Tahm Kench as well. Northscaran tries to soak the CC to keep his AD carry alive, but ultimately will fall down.
Mid lane, Vander gets hooked. Now the engage, Vander very much in trouble. A lot of damage goes down onto him, but once again, Larson the man you have to keep your eyes on, trying to chase down, looking for Xerxes, is going to get the kill. Finn now on the hunt, has the reset. Kabe is going to get pulled back. Infernal Chains will find it, but no, Kabe still trying to survive. It will not be enough. Larson on a rampage. Humanoid, the last one left standing. Vizichachi up to the side, but the Meganar will fall away. He will not get his Wombo moment, and Humanoid pays the price with his life. It's only Vizichachi versus the world.
Rogue are not slowing down. They keep throwing out punch after punch into the face here of Splyce. Once again, one member of Splyce alive, but this is going to be another very early Baron for Rogue.
I don't think there's anything that Chachi can do to stop them. He doesn't have access to Flash. Larson has set up a trap for him. They have vision control. I think this is free for Rogue.
4K and dropping 24 minutes into the game. Now a 3K gold lead, soon to be even greater. Backed up by a Baron. 4.5K for Rogue, a Baron as well. They are once again dominating.
I'm a glass half full type of person. So good news is, Rogue fans, your team's ahead. It looks like you guys are going to win game number 2. Good news for Splyce fans, you actually have wave clear options this time around. So this Baron should be the nail in the coffin for Splyce like it was in game 1.
But if they take another fight like this, where the Baron is on Rogue, that could just be it. Rogue continue to find these beautiful flanks on the side, these perfect initiations where the Zichachi, frankly, can never enter into this fight. They're able to turn it around for one more kill. And now with the Baron, with the Tahm Kench, with strong soul laners, they can look to pressure multiple lanes at once.
I mean, let's be frank, Splyce should not have been there to begin with when you don't have TP on Chachi and your Meganar is sitting out into a side lane.
And Splyce, once again, just getting absolutely outplayed by the Rogue side. And you can see 2.5 items for Larson, but more importantly, 3 items for Woolite. That is a lot of on-hit damage.
I just don't know how Splyce are supposed to kill this guy. They get outranged by the Kog'Maw. Their dive is relatively weak when you consider there's a Tahm Kench on the other side and a frontline all trying to body block skill shots for them. Splyce would have to come up with a miracle team fight right now, and with all this pressure on the bot side of the map, again, Rogue are going to continue to infiltrate into Splyce territory, knock out this final outer, or inner turret rather, in that bottom lane, and then get started on the inhibs.
And now when we look at it, the big siege setup, will the wave clear be enough? Splyce starting to have multiple members commit over to the top side. Vizichachi definitely have to pay more respect to Spin.
They can also use the Abyssal Voyage if they want to just straight up die Vizichachi. If they were to pull multiple members of Splyce towards the middle lane or the top lane, you can definitely make this type of play happen.
They do need to respect Meganar popping, though.
Stolen Sejuani ultimate as well. Woolite still stepping forward, though. Vander there to body block. Can't look to save Inspired, but...
Look at Norscarin! He's down to 50.
Just so much damage coming through. Now, double Baron creeps, they're pushing in. They're going to break a tier 2 tower. Splyce maybe going to fit for something in the mid. Kabe feeling the play. One more auto, a few more, trying to get it to safety, but Larson will just dash out, and that means meanwhile the rest of his team could be in trouble.
Kabe literally trying everything he can right now to turn this game around, but that's his flash, that's his bottom lane inhibitor. Splyce have their backs against the wall. They continue to get chunked out, and Rogue showed no signs of slowing down.
It's absolutely fearless. Humanoid is just another name on the list. They're going to chase it in. The TP is now coming into the mid lane. Larson moving back to support. One inhibitor is going to fall. Larson may just fish for the dive here against Humanoid, but lethal tempo procs doing good damage now. The rest of the team can start to cheat to the mid lane. Humanoid has to be careful here. Instead, they've just got their eyes set on the Nexus. They're just walking into the base. Rogue are tearing Splyce apart. The Nautilus ultimate denied. Vizichachi, maybe this is his hero moment. Eyes on the Meganar. Maybe the double bounce into the ult can be enough, but it does not look like it.
Where is your cheese now, Splyce? You are actually just getting manhandled by Rogue.
No chance.
There
it is. That's what he wants, but there's no damage left. Kabe on the side. Maybe he can get this done. Maybe it will be enough. Kabe, is he there? The double kill comes through, but the Akali's alive, and Finn, he dunks down, and in this moment, Rogue are demolishing Splyce from favorites to falling through. Xerxes, it will not be enough. He gives his life, and at this moment, on this day, Rogue from 5th place to 2-0 to match point versus Splyce.
It is now changed in a discussion of defying expectations to going the distance. Match point against Splyce. This was supposed to be 3-0 and a handshake. Splyce like, you're not even worth our time. We're about the top 2. We're about the Fanatics and the G2. And Rogue say, not today. You will pay attention to us. You will respect us.
Rogue are saying it might be a 3-0, just not the way you expect it right here on match point now. And let's not forget, Splyce chose to play against Rogue, our 5th place team. They said this was the team that we could take out. Well, Rogue, they showed no signs of giving up.
Because it was supposed to be expected. That's everything that Duke said in Euphoria, you know what Rogue's going to give you. You don't know what you're going to get from Vitality. A Garen Yuumi in game number 1, the Woolite Kog'Maw in game number 2, and it has just been clean performance from Rogue. Yes, they are more of a reactionary-based team, but Splyce are not making the correct decisions, and Rogue are punishing them every single time.
And look, we kind of assumed that when it came to playing textbook that Splyce would be the better team, and that doesn't look to be the case. And when we looked at the rosters on paper, we kind of expected Splyce to outclass in a few different areas, but that is just not coming true. The bot lane difference is not showing. Woolite is carrying on his own, something I did not expect to happen. Additionally, Larson is destroying Humanoid.
Yeah, it looked insane on that Akali, but more than anything, I just love the macro moves we are seeing out of this Rogue team, completely transforming in just a week's time from week 9 to round 1 of playoffs here. And it was that move where they put so many resources down towards bot lane, immediately TP to the top side of the map. They're playing a full map style of League of Legends, and it's beautiful to watch.
And it's not just Vander that's leading the charge. Time and time again, we always sing Vander's praises. You know, if he's involved in a play, chances are things are going well. He is on form today, but this is all of Rogue stepping up. Between the macro movements of Inspired to the individual performances of Larson and Finn, these guys came to play.
And once again, just an incredible show of kind of team play as well when we look across the board at what they're bringing. Finn suffering in lane, getting kind of in these tough situations, up against Renekton one game, up against a Gnar the next game, it's Aatrox, but consistently making an impact. And now Rogue are on the verge of a massive upset against Splyce. With Game 3 just moments away, you do not want to go anywhere. Woolite can't afford to be the body blocker this time, but doesn't need to be. A fantastic ulti going in on Humanoid. The Azir is dead. Larson's invisible. They try to lock him up. Vander saved the day, but that means Woolite is vulnerable. No Tom Catch Devour for a few more seconds, but it's not going to matter. Massive damage on the Kami. He's exhausted, and he's dead. Shut down for Larson. Vander gets hooked. Now the engage. Vander very much in trouble. A lot of damage goes down onto him, but once again, Larson, the man you have to keep your eyes on, trying to chase down, looking for Xerxes, is going to get the kill. Finn now on the hunt, has the reset. Kami is going to get pulled back. Infernal Chains will find it, but no. Kami still trying to survive. It will not be enough. Larson on a rampage. To falling through. Xerxes, it will not be enough. He gives his life, and at this moment, on this day, Rogue from 5th place to 2-0 to match point versus Splyce.
You don't have a chance against me. I can calculate 90 trillion moves in advance. Not fair. Not fair.
Red Bull gives you wings.
Ready for the finals?
Experience the LEC Finals in Athens.
with Shell V-Power.
Sometimes I feel cold, even paralyzed. My interior world needs to sanitize. I've gotta step through or I'll dissipate. I'll record my step through for my basement tapes. Nice to know my kind will be on my side. I don't believe the hype, and you know you're a terrible sight, but you'll be just fine. Just don't believe the hype. Yeah, they might be talking behind your head. Your exterior
everyone to the LEC studio. There they are, Rogue, the underdogs. No one gave them a fighting chance coming into the first round of playoffs, but they are up 2-0 over Splyce. If you just tuned in, that is not a mistake. Rogue has played out of their minds, and Splyce has frankly been crumbling in front of our eyes. Is that a good way to summarize everything,
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's just so much stepping up from Rogue, right? Like Larson is popping off, solo killing mid. He's controlling the whole map from mid by himself. It feels like, I'm not sure if Splyce is underperforming or Rogue's just overperforming. They just came into this series so prepared.
I love that you brought up Larson. We had question marks around, okay, these rookies have done great so far, but how will they do in playoffs, Moose? And you told me that you think Larson is the MVP of the first 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's done 2 things. One, he's dominated Humanoid in both of those places. First game is Corki, controls his mid, and then he also takes care of Finn alone without his jungler doing that for him. And then second game, he plays Akali, and he completely dominates in this matchup.
Some of the parts are falling out because of your mic, but you're getting a new one. But let me TLDR it for you. Larson is crushing it.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that you can note in this game is the fact that Larson actually has 100% kill participation for 20. Like, he was all over the map. He was in the bot fights. He was TPing behind top, making a pick. He was solo killing mid. Like, it doesn't matter which side of the map that Splyce is controlling, and Larson's always just going to be there.
Yeah, we were looking at the stats, and I actually wanted to have a graphic to show how good he's been, but it doesn't really show. But it's more the movements he's making and the way he's threatening the entire map, it seems like.
Yeah, you could see in the first game when he was playing Corki, he had mid prior all game, and he was just hovering in the top side, stopping these top dives so that they could only make 2 dives in total. He was stopping the crabs, just taking them away. He solo stopped them taking Herald with just pressure itself. And even in this game, he's just all around the map. You put him in a losing matchup where he's getting pushed in. Maybe he gets pushed in the first 5 levels, but then he's just going to solo kill you and take prio.
Kind of the same story for Finn, you know. He's not getting all the resources. Actually, he's getting a lot of ganks from Splyce, but he's doing so much with what he's given.
Yeah, so the thing with Finn is like they're leaving him on a complete island initially, and then Larson's taking care of him. But the amount Finn does after he gets like that little bit of resource is absolutely incredible this series. He's not only taking care of his own lane, but he's also finding really good times to roam, or he's absorbing a lot of pressure and has really good TPs. He's been excellent.
Has it surprised you, because we talked so much about Vander being the key player coming into this, has it surprised you how much these rookies have been carrying?
Yeah, for sure. Like, Finn and Larson have been on the same page throughout this whole game. You could see in team fights they're playing together over sides, and you can see they're talking a lot throughout the laning phases of who wants to match where and what's happening in the 1-3-1.
It's crazy. Then I want to look at Splyce. There was a moment in this last game where you think this is surely the perfect scenario for a team like Splyce, where Kabi picks up 2 to 3 kills in the bottom lane through that engage on his Kai'Sa, and this is where you guys said, okay, it's over, because Kabi has the kills, Azir has kills, so where did Splyce then drop the ball in not snowballing this advantage?
I think this is one place where we need to put some criticism on Northgren for the series. So after they get these kills, they do the swap and they go top side and they're playing for Herald, and it looks really good. And then Northgren gets caught out this game, and that destroys everything, all the tempo and momentum that Splyce has on the map. And now Splyce, instead of trying to recover that, they seem a little bit lost about how to adapt to the situation. And it's similar to game 1, where Northgren, again, on this volleyball was getting caught out quite a bit. It's like he's misreading tempo or not knowing which lane to play through.
And we see how influential that is, but then, yeah, I want to put the onus not just on him, because as a team as Splyce, they've been playing with Northgren for a while. I'm sure they've had these games before as well, so how come the rest of it is also not working?
I'm not sure what's going on with Splyce, honestly. Like, after this bot fight, they had so much resources to snowball the game. It feels like they're never picking the fight they want, and Splyce is just, Rogue is just making picks wherever they want and just dominating every team fight.
And the other side of the coin is that Rogue is getting a lot of these windows handed to them by Splyce, but then they're controlling the map, and they're actually fighting them for it, and they're making sure that Splyce feels pressured in that zone. So we talked at the beginning of the day that Vander is the main enabler, but we need 2 other people to show up from Rogue. That's been Finn and Larson so far. In these moments where Rogue has control, Finn and Larson are really taking control and like looking for plays and being very proactive, and that's putting even more pressure on Splyce.
Someone else, maybe Woolite, who a lot of people like to write off as, okay, he's not going to do anything, and he's certainly classes below Kabi. Doesn't matter what he picks at the end of the day, as long as he's doing the job for his team, and he's doing more than Kabi right now.
Yeah, for sure. Woolite's playing with absolutely no fear. You can see even in laning phase or in team fights or when they're sieging towers, he's just stepping up, chunking them out, and he's always got Vander right behind him with the Tahm Kench. It feels like Rogue's always drafting for this strong topside comp. Even though they've got a Tamkench in the bot, they're still putting out pressure and doing their job really well.
And they're giving a lot of pressure to Splyce in the early game. We took a look at the statistics of Rogue, what they usually do with what they've done rather throughout the regular season, pre-15 minutes. And they have just brought that average up so much at the goal difference at 15 minutes. Usually they're down 1.2k. Now they're up almost 1k. They have a lot of more kills, and that's just more action in the early game as well. And I find it extremely impressive from that team, which we hadn't expected that much from, and we were thinking about all kinds of possible pressures they'd have. They seem to be playing with no pressure whatsoever, Moose.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that like you have these bunch of rookies that are coming on stage, and they are here to win it. Like they're showing that they have that will to win it, and they're willing to put everything on the line for it. Splyce, it seems like they understand that they're the favorites, and they seem a little bit slow. Just all of them overall seem a little bit slow on the play today. And Rogue is just taking it home and just punishing them like over and over again for it.
I think Rogue's just playing with a lot of momentum right now. You can see in game 1, it was play after play after play, and they didn't let Splyce even breathe. They were making sure they got the plays, they got the neutral objectives, they were contesting everything. And even when they lose a fight in bot side, they just reset mentally. They talk about the next planet, feels like, and just feels like they're out-macroing Splyce in a sense that even if Splyce had a lead at that 10-minute swap, that Rogue was just ready to answer it. And we saw that last week as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're just on an up and up, and we thought, okay, maybe this Splyce losing 2 games in week 9, we're not going to think too much about it because surely they'll recover. Rogue beating Origin, maybe it's just a blip on the radar. It seems to be exactly foreshadowed as what was going to happen in playoffs. So now we're about to jump into picks and bans. We're going to do them here on the desk. Your Splyce, they're now on blue side. They got to pick because the loser got to pick the sides. What do you think of this adaptation, first off, from Splyce, and where do you think they're going to go?
Well, I think you can see Rogue in the last 2 games have been picking top mid jungle in the first 3. I think as Splyce, you need to match this. You can't let them have these winning matchups or let Larson have these decent matchups where he's confident in. I think you need to definitely look for a Kiana first pick, deny the Aatrox somehow on red side, maybe even first pick away the Akali like they did last draft. You definitely need to secure a strong top side.
I agree with that, and also the other interesting thing is on blue side, now Splyce is going to have the option. I expect the Yuumi ban to stay, and I expect the Olaf ban to stay. So the question for Splyce, the other one, is what's their answer to Aatrox? Do they ban it, or do they take it themselves, or do they let Splyce have it, or Rogue have it again and try to have an answer?
There we go, into picks and bans for game 3, which could be the last game of the series. Splyce is on the blue side, and as you said, when it comes to such a best of 5, of course, we have the DNA of the pick and ban changing game per game, especially after the curveballs that Rogue has thrown out, both in picks and bans and out of game. You said Rogue is focusing on that top side, so there we go, immediately Splyce coming with the adaptation and the Aatrox ban.
Yeah, you know Larson and Finn both flex the Aurelia. Banning that on blue side is really important because then you're not really sure where it's going. There's the Aatrox ban as well, so that's not going to be able to be flexed either. So they're taking away all the flexes possible for top side so they can secure a strong one. And like Hussein said, they took away the Yuumi. They don't want to face that Garen Yuumi again.
Which also means that Olaf is open now. And so I don't see Splyce being the team that plays Olaf. So now the question is, what is their answer to Olaf on blue side?
That is the big question, and when we talk about Inspired, we've been positive about him at times, but really it came down to on Olaf, he is the strongest. He played the strongest games on Olaf in this split, and if that is open and Splyce doesn't pick it, you've got a whole new problem on your hands. There we go, the Kiana ban will still be there from Rogue. I think that's wise because they don't want a humanoid on anything like a Kiana, but he may have the Akali.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rogue will just take away the Sylas and the Olaf here probably. It's a good matchup into the Akali. Oh, they're going for the Corki again, which is actually what was played in game 1. I mean, Larson played this matchup really, really well.
Really well, despite the nerfs somehow. He still did fantastic with it. Why is he so good on that champ?
And actually, I mean, yeah, he's always known for this control mage, like scaling, really well played in lane. I think you can also argue that Rogue might flex the Corki here. They could be late picking like a Sylas here or something, so I wouldn't rest too much that Corki's going mid lane. Could even go top lane, so we'll see what happens.
Same for the Akali. Do we think it's going mid?
Most likely, yeah.
Most likely, yeah. You don't know the curveballs they are going to be throwing. Maybe we could just see the mid lane matchup right here. And then the Kai'Sa for Wuya. Of course, with the Xayah being out of the equation, she is the second marksman that you'd want to pick up in this situation if you want to play a pure marksman. So there we go. And then the Gragas coming through for Xerxes.
Yeah, the Kai'Sa Corki kind of kills the flex. That Corki is definitely going mid lane, so you can confidently pick other roles now.
Yeah, and I like the Gragas pick from them. Now, the only other question is Rogue, even knowing that they have a Corki mid, still going to take Olaf on 3? Because I personally, I don't like those mid-jungle too much together. With that said, though, for AD, they have Tristana, Lucian as answers, potentially. Early Braum, what do you think about that?
Well, that suggests they're probably going for like a Lucian Braum, like you said. Sivir Braum is quite likely into Kai'Sa as well. I mean, they have a few options, so I guess they're just going to leave AD till the next rotation.
Even Sivir Braum, Sivir with the changes now?
Not too sure. I've been seeing some Sivir, but not too much on 9-16. I mean, there is a few AD still open, but Rakan is, from what I know, a good matchup into Braum. So now this leaves Splyce to ban out junglers, right? So most likely going to ban out Olaf, Jarvan, something like this that just makes the Gragas freed up a bit more. Or they could look to ban out top laners and just get rid of those counter picks.
What do you think about the fact that the Olaf wasn't picked yet and they prioritized something else? And in fact, they didn't prioritize anything in the top side yet for Rogue in the first phase.
Well, my guess is probably that Rogue expects Olaf to be banned most games, so they probably haven't practiced it in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It's been banned against him constantly, so...
Just run at the enemy.
Exactly, yeah, but I guess Inspired was just sort of like, well, I'm not really going to practice this. I know it's going to be banned against me for the whole series. And now that it's open, he doesn't really need to pick it. There is a few other picks into Gragas he can go for. He might go for a Skarner. He might go for something like the Elise. The Sejuani is banned, so that does leave open things like the Olaf, which is pretty good into Gragas, which I wouldn't, not expect.
They don't
I
have
was
to
playing an Olaf ban here over the Sejuani. I'm surprised about that one.
Yeah, I think Sejuani Corki 2v2 is not the strongest, especially into Akali Gragas. So taking away the Sejuani is a bit of a weird one for me when most of the melees are down, apart from Camille. So taking the Olaf here is really good. Corki Olaf, really solid 2v2. Corki has mid prio, Olaf can invade the Gragas a lot.
There we go, and now Inspired is also unleashed together with the rest of the team so far. What is Kabi and what are Splyce looking for here as the next pick?
Well, they've taken away the Lucian, so they've got Sivir open. Maybe they go for an AP mage, but I'm not sure if that works.
Well,
so
I was
with
going
Braum.
to say, maybe they now try and do this. You know, of course, the Syndra was buffed as well, but I don't know if I'm looking too much into it.
Yeah, I
but
think
a lot of the strong picks are off the table.
Sivir is for sure the safest here. They've gone for Tristana as well. That's also super safe.
Fantastic.
Tristana Braum, good scaling matchup. I think it's probably pretty fine into Kai'Sa Rakan, and it makes Olaf's job a bit harder in team fights to get on Tristana.
I think the other question here is what does Vichachi blind pick for top lane now? Because anything he picks, as far as I can see, has a strong counter.
Or GP's down actually, so I guess he has Gnar or Karma, something like that. I wouldn't want to pick too much AP in the top side, because then you're triple AP into Corki, so it just makes his itemization
And it's
easy.
such an important pick as well, knowing how this series has gone so far and what Rogue has done with not even investing too much in Finn. It's going to be the Gnar once again, and then we're going to look at the pick for Finn. So
I wouldn't be too much of a fan of the Jace. I think something like Camille might be better, or something that can match Akali more on side, something just with more strength, but I guess Jace is pretty fine into Gnar. It's a good matchup. Maybe even Kennen is pretty good here, I think.
yeah, we're going to see his Kled. I was
Kled.
just
Oh,
going to
yeah,
say,
the Kled.
yes, we are. Why didn't I say it a second earlier? I swear I had predicted.
about
There
this
we
one.
go. The Kled. What do we think of Finn on Kled? It is one of those, of his magical picks, so to say.
Yeah, it's his one trick since a long time ago. He's probably one of the best Kleds in EU, I think, for sure. And you can just look at this Rogue comp and it just, like, everyone's coming at you head on. Olaf's running into you with the Kled ult, Kai'Sa's ulting in your backline, Rakan's going in, whereas Splyce kind of wants to play the team fight slow, wait for the Mega Gnar, Gragas ult them back a bit, maybe Tristana can free hit.
To me, for Splyce, it looks like they've just done what they've been trying to do, right? And playing to their comfort in terms of style. But for Rogue, it looks like they've evolved throughout the series and now have Woolite on this strong Kai'Sa, possibly again a strong top side and jungle. What does this mean for the game? Is this a 3-0 for Rogue with this comp, Moose?
I'm heavily favoring Rogue over here. I think they have mid prio, they have Olaf for jungle, they have comfort on Finn who can roam around and make engages and things happen with it. I think this is a good draft for Rogue.
But I do think if Splyce if Rogue don't get ahead that much early, I think Splyce's comp actually outscales them pretty nicely. They've got the Tristana, they've got the Akali. I wouldn't be surprised to see Splyce win this game if it goes even towards
Cool.
early
Let's
game.
see. Spicy drafts on both sides. A possible last game, or can Splyce claw themselves back in this series? The teams are ready for game 3, so let's head over to our casters.
Thank you very much, Shocks. Of course, this is it. It is do or die for the side of Splyce. A very different draft this time around. Splyce so bold as to leave Inspired's Olaf open. An incredibly confident maneuver as we get ready for what very well could be our final game of the day and Splyce's final game of the year. Can't read that one, but I'm going to assume it's a good one. And of course, just incredible performance thus far from Rogue. No surprise to see them now kind of perceived as the favorites of this series.
We finally get to see him come onto the Rift here for Game 3, though. And you to bring up Inspired's Olaf a little bit earlier. This is a champion that almost no teams are willing to let fall into his hands. This champion can absolutely pop off against you in the early game. And usually when we see Inspired play this Olaf, it's on blue side, because they have to first pick it when no one bans it away. A game like this, they're able to pick it up. But one thing you'll see Inspired do a lot is play inside the enemy jungle and play to attack the enemy jungler on his camps, to steal them away. And one thing you're going to try to see a lot from him when on red side is to invade the enemy Raptor camp. Now, this is probably going to be on the second respawn of it, so think around 4 minutes, 30 seconds, 5 minutes into the game, depending on Xerxes' early game pathing. But as we heard on the desk, with a mid laner like the Corki that can have priority in the early game, expect to see Inspired getting up to some business inside the enemy jungle early on.
Which is why the Braum Tristana is so interesting coming out of Kabe nor Scaran, because I agree with you. It's usually about how we're going to use that priority for Rogue in that mid lane to allow Inspired to just really attack Xerxes' jungle. But Kabe on this Tristana and nor Scaran on the Braum actually have a lot of 2v2 potential and a lot of all-in potential onto a Kai'Sa and Rakan.
That's sort of why I like seeing Xerxes starting up on his top side of the map too, because you think level 2, there's going to be kill threat if you bring a jungler around to this bottom lane for Splyce because of that combo as you mentioned. So eyes on Xerxes, even though typically he waits to level 6 to farm up and then make his plays, he does have room to make some moves earlier.
And we've seen explosive early games from Xerxes. Just because he plays one way most of the time doesn't mean that he can't show us more this time around. And feels like it would be a very needed change of pace for Splyce. But we also heard from the analyst desk that Rogue need to find something here in the early game, because the later you go, the less a champion like Olaf is going to mean, and eventually Splyce's team comp with the picks like a Tristana, the Akali, the engage/disengage power of a Gragas will outscale.
Yeah, now one other reason why we do see Olaf's play inside the enemy jungle a lot is because his early clear is so fast. So he's already finished with Wolves while Xerxes is still going to be on that camp. So when he full clears his jungle, he actually has about 30 seconds or 45 seconds where he doesn't have to do anything on the map. Doesn't have to, farm any camps. Those haven't quite spawned just yet. So expect to see Inspired after he full clears his topside jungle to maybe reset, try to put some vision down in the enemy side of the map to give protection for Woolite and Pander.
Now, of course, priority in the mid lane, which is going to make his life that much easier. See where he goes with that reset once he gets an item under his belt, how exactly he wants to play the rest of this one out. In the meantime, Finn very much struggling towards the top side of the map. The range advantage Vizicachi holds on too early will make this one difficult. Now, last time Finn was able to play this Kled up into Vizicachi. It was against a GP, but Finn had a very rough time. He and Inspire were not able to get anything done. The question is, will this time be different? Because so far in the series, with the Aatrox in his hands, Finn has been one of the most impactful Rogue members, but can the Kled be the same level of impact?
It's still really hard to put a Kled down because he has so many tools to turn things around with the Kled there. Excuse me, Kled. Scarl there, his ability to hop on and off. So even if he's pushed under his tower, it's still very dangerous to dive Finn and dive at Kled.
So even though there wasn't a kill up in the top lane, Vizicachi's laning phase just ended effectively. Inspired started with the sweeper, so he walks in, he clears the vision. Now with the lane frozen on Chachi's side of the map, or on Finn's side of the map rather, Chachi can't TP back in the lane. He has to walk because the threat of a jungle gank is way too real.
Then that just means he's going to sit here and CS up, make up for the difference that he suffered earlier on in the game. So well played by the side of Inspired. And of course, the vicious strikes coming in from the Kled and the healing reduction as well makes it very difficult for Vizicachi to survive these all-ins in mini Gnar.
So top lane not as bad as I made it out to be. There's a lot of ranged minions on Finn's side, so the wave is going to push back in towards Chachi. Finn just going to have the level lead for the time being.
Yeah, and it's very important then that Chachi's able to survive this initial crash, as those 3 waves will connect into his tower. So there is the potential that before this crashes in, although small window since Inspired is bot side, that normally you could be dove at this point in the map. But we see the Olaf, he's bot, he's starting to path towards top lane, but he's not going to be here in time just for this crash.
I'm thinking Inspired wants to play inside of Xerxes' topside jungle now. He thinks he knows the Gragas should have started on the top side of the map. There's no camps for Inspired to be going now other than his bot side. So him being on this side of the map is unexpected at the moment. So he either needs to cash in on some pressure in the top lane or get inside of Xerxes' jungle and try to fight him.
He's on his way, Ender.
Of course, proccing the Blast Guard, the Scribe's Bloom as well will give away a little bit of information to the side of Splyce. Xerxes feeling quite comfortable so far in the early game, actually ahead 1 camp over Inspired, it looks like. So all things considered, not quite the immediate early game impact we may have expected, and Xerxes just going to clear out a bit of this vision.
I mean, it's not translating into Inspired picking up kills or dueling a lot, but it is translating into Inspired constantly getting vision and tracking Xerxes. Xerxes has been tracked by Rogue the entire time, and that means that Larssen is playing with perfect information, and you are starting to see, again, Larssen take advantage of a range versus melee matchup in his CS.
But I actually just think Xerxes won out a lot here. He's actually on Inspired's Raptor camp right now when you're thinking Inspired needs to make that play. So even though Inspired is going to walk over and make a response play in his own, we were thinking Inspired is going to try to accelerate in terms of jungle experience, was trying to take this and also cash in on his own Raptor. So instead of that, it's actually just Xerxes staying even. And if Gragas and Olaf hit level 6, Gragas is going to be happy that Olaf hasn't done anything yet.
Definitely. Once again, expecting this to be the Oots, but Vizicachi needs to be careful. Finn still has a flash up and available, waiting. Of course, a slowed down Finn means that he's not going to flash forward, knowing Vizicachi will just flash in response.
And this is one of the really dangerous things when you face a Kled, his ability to chase you when the wave gets frozen on the side. Because of Bear Trap on a rope and his ability to joust through and get on top of you, it's really devastating for Chachi to have the wave frozen on that side, and that's what you were talking about, Inder. This is when it gets really hard for Chachi to lane.
Yeah, he's definitely going to need some vision here, especially with Inspired probably coming up towards the top side of the map very soon. Now, one thing I was thinking was, Finn, if he knows Inspired is going to play through his lane in the next few minutes, you take that flash for flash trade. You know Chachi is likely going to be pushing. If he doesn't have the flash, that's easy kills.
Here we go. Here comes the charge. Vizicachi caught up. Bear Trap on a rope will connect, but will not proc again. So just trying to get a bit of pressure here on the top side.
This is exactly what Finn wants, though, because now Inspired has a 5-minute window where you can come back top lane and punish this Gnar. Now if Chachi is ever pushing up, he must demand jungle attention to help him push the wave in.
And this is actually kind of a Inception type of move here. One of the things that Olaf is really good at is he's good at taking dragons by himself. And you can see where Xerxes is pathing. He's underneath Chachi. Chachi needs resources and safety net underneath him. And Inspired, recognizing that the jungler is probably topside, is able to use Olaf's ability to solo the dragon and take Infernal.
And Finn, in the meantime, demounted, forced to use his own flash. So Splyce are able to match flash for flash, but as you mentioned, that Inception play, that knowledge, kind of forcing Xerxes to choose means the Rogue get the better end of both, trading flashes on the top side and getting Infernal Drake in the meantime.
Inspired's pathing also fairly unintuitive there. Xerxes usually a jungler that's very good at reading his opponents, but Inspired is just sacrificing jungle camps to make plays on other sides of the map where he does have tempo.
But we are doubling down. Humanoid now has priority in mid lane. He has cheated up towards this top side. Finn, no flash, no TP. 1 versus 3. What you got?
TP on the way and TP being responded to. Finn can get demounted. Will have an opportunity, but Splyce just forced to pull away. They've already burned their TP. Kabi now forced to commit onto the top side.
But here's the thing. Woolite doesn't mind being up here. We've successfully taken a very early dragon. Yes, the Rift Herald isn't up, but you can make a swap like this and not lose anything because you don't lose numbers advantage over the monster objective since it's dead bot.
Both supports now just forced to back. Oh, I guess we're going top now. Both members without TP say to themselves, Inspired will be here as well, but will be spotted out by a well-placed ward on the side of Splyce. And they know the Olaf is there, and Kavi's still willing to step forward here as he has multiple members on the top side of the map. Now checking in though, of course, Corki with the package up and available will be a threat, something that Splyce definitely need to respect here.
That's what we were sort of waiting for, because with all teleports down, with only flashes being blown on the top laners, you look around the map, it's like, well, it's hard to really force a play anywhere. But now that Rogue know they're going to have priority over mid lane, they're going to have that quick global pressure of a Larson. You actually generate a lot more control over these two side lanes, especially where Inspired is on the map, because if you can freeze this wave in front of your tower, Norskairn and Kabi can't actually farm. And I actually think that Woolite clearing away those minions may be a mistake, but they do see that duo on top of the ward.
Have to be careful here. But of course, it's really Splyce who has to be careful. Woolite just kind of wait and bait, and I think they've realized that they're now on a ward. Okay.
It was the ultimate mind game, because they wanted to push.
Inspired is on a ward.
Wait.
They're just taking turns.
Hold on, look at where Larson is on the minimap. He's cheating towards Finn.
Here comes Xerxes though, Predator on the way in. Vizicachi's knocked it back to the wall, but he's been pushed back by the package. That's first blood for the Corki.
And this is the thing, it's constantly Splyce thinking that they know what Rogue is going to do. They were absorbing the pressure top lane, they were going to stall out Inspired's time, but it's not Inspired that takes the right turn. This time around, it's Larson, and Larson doesn't use the package to join up on the play topside. He instead turns it bottom and picks up another assist for Finn.
And this is, I think, the thing that's impressed me most about Rogue throughout this series, is that they are playing the full map right there. And yes, there is inherent risk to that, to splitting up your pressure onto two polar opposite sides of the map, but ultimately, you have Larson with the package, you know a Kali cannot respond, and with that knockback too, like, what can this flashless Gnar actually do? It goes back 3 minutes to when Finn was able to burn Chachi's flash in that 1v1.
In a situation like that, Rogue did a good job by having wards placed on that that pathway down to get the Corki there with the control ward, but where was Humanoid calling the miss on his lane opponent?
He was farming mid lane.
But also, as we look back on that play, I do have to give a decent amount of credit to Finn. By using the pocket pistol there, it looks like he denied the wall impact damage from the Gnar. So still incredibly well played mechanically, but now Larson is the one in trouble. Humanoid looking for a little bit of vengeance after the previous game. Larson now has to run for the hills. Hexagon keeping him alive for now, but Humanoid will still grab that one in the end.
And finally, Humanoid is ready to play in the series. This is the guy that we need to start popping off here. It shouldn't be Larson controlling this mid lane.
But look at top lane. Finn and Inspired are both in this lane. They want to make a play.
The charge. Norskairn's not going to be enough to stop this one. The entire team collapses. uses. Xerxes trying to find the disengage. Maybe Splyce can turn it, but Woolite goes right back in. That's going to be a lethal instinct right there. Diving into the backside. Humanoid left all on his lonesome.
Once again, Splyce think they know the play. They got the kill onto Larson. Everything was going so perfectly for them, but it was Finn sacrificing CS down in this bottom lane to make the roam play, to walk through the control ward, denial of vision in top lane to set up for a couple quick kills.
And now it's a Rift Herald. It's the fact that you have the TP from Larson to cover the bot lane, so Chachi's not getting any free plates. Across map, top Herald and bot lane Rogue match Splyce and come ahead. Now looking at close to a 1k gold advantage.
And honestly, the team play from Rogue has been fantastic this series. Everyone on the same page for this tower dive. And once again, as we look back on the pro view, it is Splyce who are caught unaware and unprepared.
And it's Finn with the charge right here, not able to single out the AD carry, but is able to pick up the CC down on towards the Braum. The whole of Rogue ready to fire on this play. And I challenge you to think, we look at the CS difference between these two top laners. It's 30 CS, but if we're to switch over to the gold, Finn is right there in it because of the turret plates, because of the kills that he's actually been able to cash in on.
Now, while we were in that replay, it was Chachi and Xerxes playing the pressure game and threatening the bottom tower. It didn't translate into plates, but it is trying to get Splyce reset on this map so we can contest the Mountain Dragon that's spawning in 20 seconds.
Maybe this is the opportunity for Splyce to turn it around once again. Very much the expected favorites going into the series, and now waiting to see them come alive, see if they can fight back or if Rogue will simply find a 3-0 in playoffs as 4 rookies in what will be a massive upset in the LEC.
So both top laners are Humanoid's mid laner, but he's in top lane right now. Neither of them have TP at the moment. Finn should be coming up in the next minute or so, so it would just be a 4v4 on this bottom side of the map. It seems like Rogue want to start this thing up, and there's not a whole lot Splyce can do right now, just component items at the moment to contest.
But you also have to consider lane assignment. So I like the fact that Splyce have stepped away. They're going to go ahead and give away the Mountain Drake. They don't feel comfortable going for it or contesting for it, but you also have your non-TP member, while Chachi has a TP, playing away from the lane. And yeah, it doesn't feel great for Gnar right now, but you could have had a potential numbers advantage if you had Chachi up in topside instead of Humanoid.
Yeah, but not able to capitalize on that opportunity. Now Larson just grabs the blue buff, goes back to bot lane to continue farming. The Kled has been freed up into a melee matchup, will make his life much easier overall. And right now things just seem to be going fine for Rogue. They've got the Infernal, they've got the Mountain. But remember, what we heard from the analysts earlier, pressure is on Rogue to build bigger advantages here in the early game. Once again, they are going up against the likes of a Tristana, the likes of an Akali. But Finn may have something special planned.
Yeah, check this out. TP coming up very soon for Woolite. Finn wants to start up this fight because Inspired is on the way.
They're trapped on a rope, reducing the healing. Finn now demounted, has to be careful. Forced to back off here, but Inspired is up here, as you mentioned. Additionally, has the Eye of the Herald too, but Xerxes waiting off in the darkness, ready to go if he needs to.
40 seconds until the turret plates do go down. Looks like with Finn resetting, Rogue aren't going to be using this Herald to pick up extra money off of those plates. Instead, maybe holding on to it to fully break down a mid lane tower later on.
Now clearing it out. Larson, though, with the package, we'll see if he is able to use this to make any greater plays. For now, it seems like Rogue are pretty content farming. Something you pointed out in the previous game, FLICKR, is kind of waiting for these item spikes before you go for anything bigger, more aggressive. You can see a lot of champions between items are not quite yet to those first major items.
Which is why I agree with Andrew's assessment that it feels like Herald's probably going to be played for the mid lane, and that means to be successful, you need to have a numbers advantage there, so you don't just place the Herald, not get a plate gank, and are able to actually have the numbers to push it down.
Speaking of numbers, right now Rogue brought 4 members into the mid lane, trying to rotate this all the way up top side. You'll notice that when Humanoid went for the reset, Finn fully pushed out this wave, so they do have a lot of pressure around that side of the map.
That could actually make them pick if they feel that, again, they just catch Splyce off guard where they're not in position, that you use the Herald now instead into the top lane, because that's what you're looking for. You actually need this Herald to kill a tower and not just get the gold off of the plates there. So you needed to make sure that Splyce didn't have numbers behind it to immediately clear it out.
And the reason why they only commit the Herald top lane is so that they can get all the rest of their team back into mid so they don't end up trading towers. The Herald ideally use it mid, right? That's the most valuable tower on the map in terms of generating pressure for yourself, but instead they pick up the money off the top lane and don't lose anything in the process.
So FLICKR, just to double check with you on the logic here, because normally I look at Herald and it's very simple for me as a solo queue player, let's lay that thing down, let's get some plates, let's get some money. But are you actually happy that they've used it a little bit later, used it to break a tower rather than just getting, let's say, 300 extra gold?
I mean, yeah. Ultimately, if you can get some of that solo gold onto a champion like Corki and kind of springboard into his Trinity Force, that feels good. But I like the reaction from Rogue. It felt like they went to formation to use it mid lane to shove that tower down, but as soon as Splyce showed up, they're like, pivot, and they immediately ran it top. Because at that point in the game, the only thing you want from Herald is to actually kill a tower.
And once again, that kind of adaptability is not something you expect from a team that is, for the most part, rookies. And Summer regular season, goal difference 15. You can see very difficult regular season stats normally, but of course across this game, they've been just dominating. And here, 2K up in the early game. It feels like things are getting better and better outside of where they were matched in game 2.
I mean, the primary takeaway from this best of 5 is this is not Rogue cheesing their way through a best of 5. It had the Garen Yuumi, but this is Rogue playing very good, fundamental League of Legends. This is showing how intelligent Rogue are as a team, and they should be celebrated for that.
And Rogue continuing to go on the offense too, now bringing 5 people to barrel down mid lane. They can zone Splyce away from this tower, knock this thing out, just coming immediately off of a reset. Splyce are slow to react. They use the Kled charge in, not to actually initiate a fight, but just to zone Splyce away from the tower, and now they can fan out onto the map, pick up those side lane towers, and deny Splyce from getting much more.
And now Splyce are trying to respond, however, looking to break down this bottom tier 1 tower. Corki's on the way to pick up the farm. They know they're a little bit too late. Humanoid will get one back in return, but if we check on the top side, Vizichachi, the other member that we have to keep our eyes on, Meganar on the way. He's not going to have that range anymore. Well, it has to be careful here, but Vizichachi definitely has to respect the potential for Rakan. He's still going to stay on the top side of the map, so Splyce at least getting something back, even if they do lose the most valuable tower in the mid lane.
Chachi is really trying his luck here. I think he has a sneaking suspicion that Rogue have probably sent up multiple members. He's going to finally disengage, but an overextension would have surely meant Chachi's death.
With 40 seconds on the Mountain Drake before that does respawn, you're going to see the dual lane of Rogue reset. Now Path immediately back for this objective. Inspired 2 should look to get back to base, pick up himself a Black Cleaver. Not quite enough gold for that, but definitely refresh his HP and get ready for a fight, because this team feels really strong right now. Trinity Force on Larson. The rest of the team is geared up and ready to go.
Yeah, and it's kind of across the board as well for Splyce. Everyone's got their initial items coming in, so I agree. It's going to be who gets here first, who takes vision control, but both teams should feel fairly confident that they can put up a fight here.
And I think for Splyce, you have to feel like this is a fight that they need to win if it's going to be one they're going to take, because as a team, it's a pretty storied team. Yes, they have never quite been the team to win the split, but they've always been close. We look back at some of those 8 playoff appearances, 1 final appearances. They went to Worlds, but they've yet to win a title. This was kind of supposed to be their split where they contested the top 3. This is the best that they've looked in a regular season, but if they lose here, it's all for naught.
It would be a colossal failure for Splyce if they lost here. They picked their opponent. It is expected that they beat Rogue, and already being 2 games down is a blemish on Splyce's perfect record.
Meanwhile, Rogue, while Splyce commit 5 members to pick up the Drake themselves, Rogue are just playing the money game right now, rotating multiple members up into the top side of the map, pick up the enemy jungle CS, knock down a tower as well, and at the same time, Larson was fully pushing out that mid lane wave, so Splyce can't respond by then trading the mid lane tower.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. It was the fact that Larson was shoving this far forward, and you can see how much time it's now taking for Splyce to reset that. So as Ender's saying, they can't immediately try to trade mid tower for that top tower.
No, but you see panic pings coming out. Looks like Splyce have spotted out a death brush, and in the meantime, they will be taking the enemy blue buff. So able to get a decent amount back here. And overall, the gold, only 900 in the favor of Rogue. So what felt like a pretty commanding sort of Rogue early game with this Olaf and the Kled, actually not amounting to too great an advantage at this stage of the game.
And now we need to go back to what the desk was talking about with Cadriel and Moosby, that they felt that Splyce had a lot of scaling options that they would be able to outplay a late game. So far, Splyce have done a good job. They've slowed down the bleeding. They are trading objectives, even though it feels like Rogue are trading more up on terms of control of the map. They've constantly had Humanoid out to the side lane, level 13 to Larson's level 11. They are slowly siphoning more gold, more experience, and more leverage onto this hyper carry Akali.
Now, to put a finger on how Splyce actually want to take on these late game team fights, they have a lot of good tools, right? The long range of Tristana going to outrange everyone on the side of Rogue, but I think their team fights are about displacing the enemy, about using the Gragas cask not to initiate, but to punch away the Kai'Sa and the Corki while you deal with the Rogue frontline. Rogue wants to run straight at you, so if you have a Braum protecting the Tristana, her self-peel, and that long range, you have the ability to knock out the enemy frontline before their carries actually get to layer down damage.
And of course, in the face of a pick like Rakan, everyone thinks of the 5-man charms, thinks of these huge engaged moments, but you forget kind of the intangible value that a Braum Unbreakable brings to the table. And if 280 carries are throwing, 40,000 gold worth of damage into a Braum, you've just lost the fight.
Also just get knocked away by that Tristana. Vander not going to have the easiest of times here unless he can approach from the Fog or get some CC, something like that down on towards Kave. But the way the game's going right now, Rogue feel very good about themselves. Now with the Baron spawning up as well, these teams can be less focused on the side lane down here. Finn still trading very aggressively, but it's not about creating these collapse plays towards them. It's about controlling mid lane and then controlling the top river.
Yeah, because at this point, this is what we're playing for, is this tower. And what you're going to constantly see is that Chachi is going to always cheat down, try try to threaten this mid lane tower, and we're going to bounce waves back and forth, play kind of ping pong over who has mid lane priority and whose side lane gets potential to roam.
Finn needs to be careful, but now a TP's been burned. Humanoid can't just walk away from this one. Use the second stack of the ultimate. It does force Lars to TP out.
Oh, it looked like there was going to maybe be a fight right there. Xerxes seeing the TP come out from Larson. That could have been a quick 4v3 fight in the favor of Splyce. While these teams both have Mountain Drakes, have the ability to knock down these Barons very quickly, Vander pops the quickness to no avail.
Not quite quick enough on that one. We'll be able to walk away. However, I like the Rogue. Try to fish for more of a play there. They catch a few members out. I will be able to push out this wave, though, and they can start to walk towards Baron, look to secure some of this vision.
Still, a lot of respect from Splyce given to Rogue, the fact that they didn't pull the trigger when they had the numbers advantage in the mid lane. I think it goes to Splyce not necessarily having the best hard engage on their composition, unless Chachi is there in Meganar, or you hit an incredible cask. You know, it's not like the Sejuani ultimate. If Xerxes on Sejuani there, I think that looks much better for Splyce.
Yeah, of course, not going to find quite that simple engage option. Greg is a bit more nuanced to use there. Finn continuing to push out on the bottom side, but definitely has to be very careful here. The last 1v1 wasn't really going in his favor, and Humanoid now. No flash advantage, but no TP for Larson.
So I would like to take a moment to look at the map all the way out right here to try and figure out what Splyce are going to try to do next. Because you'll notice coming off the reset, they actually went for, oh, that's not actually going to be it right now. I was trying to get the full zoom out at the moment. We'll see if we can get it. Still not going to have it. That's okay. Don't worry about it, guys. Rogue grouping up around this middle lane.
It's because they know there's a fight.
I'm used to you disappointing me. It's fine. That's like our solo queue games. You tell me you're going to win something, it just doesn't happen. It's fine.
I baited everybody. It's okay, because Rogue are grouping up and taking control of the mid lane.
And ultimately, like Baron setups, I feel like we've talked about them a decent number of times, and it feels right now like this is that push back and forth. The push, the pull, both teams vying for control. But I'm wondering if Rogue are just going to try to break that wide open. But Vander is very patiently not going in.
Because that's the thing, unless Finn is there, it's really hard for Rogue to hard engage onto Splyce. We already talked about how Splyce lack a lot of the hard engage tools that you normally see on compositions, which is why we're kind of stuck in this ping pong of the mid lane. But as soon as someone does get access into Baron for both comps, that Baron will get shredded. Not just because both teams have a Mountain Dragon, but you're also dealing with something like a Kai'Sa, like an Olaf, and like a Tristana. So it's going to be a really tense game, probably more so from Splyce because they are playing against match point. One mistake costs you your playoff run.
We're going to have a fight coming up very soon. Infernal Drake spawning in 5 seconds. One weakness of Rogue in the regular season, they always showed up to objectives way too early, you know? Before it was spawning, they wasted a lot of time. This time, they all reset immediately before that objective respawn. So while, yes, they're not the first team into the river, they're all at full power coming into this fight, and they have the ability to force on you.
Here comes the charge. Norscaring going to be sacrificed here, leaping into the rest of the team on the way. Vander, though, knocked back. Can he get anything? No. Finn now forced to retreat. Humanoid into the back line. Pocket Pistol will take him over the wall, but Vizichachi runs him down. Kavi's going to grab that kill, and now Humanoid trying to find a kill. Will he step forward for more? Xerxes walking in, both sides gonna walk away. Scathed though, a lot of hurt members.
Rogue just had to overforce into that fight. Once you go in with Kled, you cannot go out. And they got caught in this very tight funnel of a corridor with Humanoid coming in from behind. It meant that Rogue actually couldn't get their backline in there to deal the DPS.
And this is what we were waiting for. We needed a pick to go down, someone to lose numbers so we could eventually start winning out on this mid lane. Now, there is going to be a big reset moment here. Splyce have committed to taking the mid tower, trying to stagger their backs as well as the Infernal, and immediately you see Rogue sprinting towards the Baron. That's because they're first on the map, they have the numbers advantage here, and I'm just curious how bold they're feeling. Splyce know that this is a potential, they need to guard this Baron.
Vander finds the knockup. Shuriken is there. Humanoid though now in trouble to shut down. This could be it. Humanoid may have just cost his team the game.
Yeah, you can see they immediately want to go for Baron. The TP comes in, Finn not wasting any time, wants to start this up. He does not have the charge to start off the fight. Large initiation cooldowns down as well. No quickness for Vander. It's a 5v4 without their spells.
Chachi, this is his time to shine. Meganar is on the way. He leaps in, he finds three! And instead, he waited so long for his opportunity, and there it is. Finn though, fishing for the reset. Larson still in touch with the backside. He may just get the remount. Norscaring now running for his life. Rogue have turned the play. I cannot believe it. Finn gets the remount. He's running them down. This could be it. The cask is forced out. It's the only hope they had left.
Now, Chachi did manage to save absolute disaster for Splyce. He stopped the Baron, but this is time and time again that Splyce are caught off from this play. They play League of Legends by the book. They say there's no way they turn on the Baron, but they lost tempo. They didn't have the time on the map. They didn't have the numbers, and Rogue immediately pulled the trigger.
And we have to look at this Alienware replay. It's incredible from Vizichachi.
Yeah, just a beautiful initiation right there. Gets 4 out of 5 members. But here's the key thing. While Kabe goes goes down, Rogue, they have an extra AD carry, so Larson stays alive, they have the range advantage, and with the remount coming in from Finn, they're able to chase down the rest of Splyce.
Now, at this point, as we come out of this replay, things should have settled. Splyce want to make sure that they clear out all of that vision that Rogue have just played in over the Baron, and we're going to go back to not just rushing the Baron, but playing the priority game, playing that wave game in the top and the mid lane to make it much safer to set up.
And getting more time and more gold in respective teams' back pockets. Of course, it is 3 items now for Kobbe and Tristana, only 2.5 on the side of Woolite.
Kobbe absolutely massive right now, and we're just 26 minutes into the game. With the late game scaling options, the team fight tools for Splyce, you have to give a lot of weight for them in these later game team fights, in the fights around the coming Mountain Drake and the Baron.
As long as what we call the line of scrimmage is set up for Splyce, you need to have your tank line in front of you. You need to allow Kobbe to free hit. So fighting in corridors is very successful for them because it's very difficult for Rogue's composition to get around. Catching them out, however, with the mobility of Finn's charge is where Rogue can strike.
Yeah, I think what you're getting at is a fight that stays still, Rogue will not win. A fight that moves, they will.
Here we go, Vander off on the flank, he finds it, it's a beautiful engage, everyone goes in, Humanoid is left, holding his head in his hands, he doesn't even get to participate, the Akali is useless, Woolite takes down Kobbe and Humanoid dies in the end. Rogue have destroyed Splyce.
Rogue take 5 without losing a single member. They don't even care about the Baron buff. They're just going to charge it down this mid lane. They're going to be able to take a lot.
They are massive death timers. 20 on Kobbe, 14 on Norscan. Rogue are going to do as much damage as possible before Splyce get up.
And here we go, ladies and gentlemen.
They're just going for the end.
They're going to end it. Not just a 2-0, not just a win, but here we go, defying all expectations. The legacy of European rookies is alive and well with Rogue. They destroy Splyce. They secure top 4.
Talk to Finn on Euphoria. Asked him, why are you a fan of Rogue? His immediate response, because we are the future of Europe. He has 13 games played. He comes into this across from Chachi at 301, and he makes his name. Remember the name. Remember Larson. Remember Inspired. Remember Finn.
4 of Rogue's players today had never stepped on the LEC stage for playoffs. This was their first 3 games they have ever played in the postseason here, and they absolutely dismantled Splyce. This was clearly the better team on the day. They continue to just destroy everyone's expectations, and this squad that finished 10th place in spring is now going to the top 4.
And now when you look at the matches that are ahead of them, it is no longer, oh, we see the information that you might have seen in this series. This could just be one more level up. There could be another level for Rogue beyond that. They have grown so much in the 1 week from the last time we saw them play. Now we just have to find out where the ceiling is. Now we have to see which team they will play against. Will it be Schalke? Will it be Vitality?
And that does mean that we now have to look across at the other side, because while there are victors, there are also losers. This was supposed to be Splyce's ascension. They were chasing perfection. They were chasing competition with the top 2. I don't know if they looked past Rogue, if they didn't have their Wheaties, if this was just a bad day, but Splyce got destroyed. They still have another chance in the regional qualifier, but the mental looked like it went boom.
They fall short one more time, this team, every single year. We remember the 2016, the great year for Splyce. They came in, they made it to a final, they impressed on the international stage. It had been 3 years. They built this team around Kobbe. This team was supposed to go the distance, and to get cut down by a rookie squad here is just a huge, gut-wrenching moment for their fans.
And I'm just honestly, once again, in awe at the coordination that we saw from Rogue as a squad, the faith that these guys had in each other. That final engage was such a thing of beauty, where you see Rakan waiting off to the side, you have the Kled ready to go in, and I feel so bad for Humanoid in that instance, because he is standing miles away from the team fight, watching 3 incredibly mobile champions dive his backline while he can do nothing about it.
Rogue just turned into a team almost overnight that had perfect teamfight execution, great use of flanks from both Vander and Finn in earlier games, and they played offensive League of Legends. They were not waiting on the back foot. They were not passively losing lanes and then hoping they could turn around later on. This team was in your face. They were not holding any punches, and it was just a joy to watch.
And I love the 3 different looks we got from them. The fact that they pulled out the Yuumi Garen, then they had the Kog'Maw, and then they went to comfort picks. They showed that they were diverse enough that they could transverse a best of 5. I don't know if they have the fuel in it to go a full 5 games or what other tricks they have up their sleeves, but I was not expecting this level of Rogue. I was expecting them to go to the comfort picks, and if they didn't get them, that they would fall apart.
This was a team where earlier in the season we said, there's one ban you need against them. You ban Olaf, this team is finished. Now, I don't think you could get rid of them with 10 bans. I don't think they have so many options here that's so hard to shut them down.
And honestly, no matter what happens in the rounds to come, this is definitely Rogue's day. It was a fantastic series. Now, if you want to vote for Kia Player of the Series, you can vote at LOL Esports on Twitter. Finn, Larson, Vander are your options. Of course, all 5 players probably worthy. We're only going to fit 3 in. You can't put 4 because then one guy's left out, so we gave you 3, folks. Those are your choices. That's what it's going to be. I want to give a special shout out to Woolite, who didn't make the poll, but definitely was fantastic, and I think each of these games very much a role player. And among Finn, Larson, and Vander, who you got your eyes on?
I think it's Larson. I think he had a super dominant performance in Game 1 and Game 2. I think he fell off a little bit in Game 3 or didn't have the same impact, but I think over the course of the series, Larson's the guy to look.
Yeah, I mean, he just stepped up so hugely. Went from a player that farms really well in lane to one that kills other talent. Great stuff from him.
Well, after 3 games, Inspired is now a veteran of the playoff stage. Let's see what he has to say about making it to the next round.
Thank you very much, guys. And wow, I mean, for a team who came in today with 0 expectations, you had something to prove, I guess. So any first thoughts on moving to round 2 now?
I mean, if we beat Splyce, I think we can beat everyone. I mean, at least from second Robin. So I'm really confident.
Okay, that was really a different Rogue from what we've been used to seeing during the split because, I mean, you've been inconsistent in a way, and there was no defining moment when your guys turned everything around. So was there a moment you knew that you could actually reach playoff and keep on getting better and better?
I would say that we got a lot of experience from every game on the stage. So start wasn't the best, but with every week going on, we felt much more confidence on stage. And coming to playoffs, a lot of people didn't expect us to win, but I was really confident that we'll win. Like, I knew that if we'll play like we do in practice, we will be able to take down Splyce.
It's interesting because coming in today, you guys were, both teams were super slow team, a bit inconsistent in the early game, especially you guys, and you were so proactive today, moving around the map. Was it something you guys worked on this week? And how could you reach this level so fast?
I would say that we worked on it the most because it was the biggest weakness. I mean, we take a lot of experience from stage. We saw what we did wrong, and most of the times the wrong things was rotation on the map. We also focused on that mostly on scrims. So in reviews, we talked about rotations all the time. And yeah, we can see that it pays off.
And even on your first series coming today, as you were going to play the first best of 5 of your career on the LEC stage, what were your thoughts?
I played some best of 5s in my career already, so I wasn't really stressed. I just took it like another week in LEC.
Okay, well, one step at a time, as every team does, apparently. In Ready Check, we talked about the fact that Yuumi was less strong than she used to be, Azir and Corki as well, and still you guys decided to pick these champions in Game 1. So can you give me the reasoning behind this?
I mean, the champs that we picked worked really well for us on scrims, so we decided that we'll just go with it. We had prepared so many draft scenarios, actually, like Kog'Maw with Tam, first game with Garen, if they will pick something aggressive into Yuumi, like they did Volibear. And yeah, we just practiced those comps and it worked out.
Now that the series is over, tell me more about your prep. How did you guys prep against Splyce? You were mentioning a lot of scenarios being ready, so tell me more about this.
It's more like we knew what champs they play, so what champs are good against them. We expected the Volibear pick, that's why we prepared Garen. And I mean, overall, we don't prepare for like one team. We prepare like what's the best on the patch, like what should we play. And so it wasn't like main focus on Splyce too. Yeah.
In game 2, you managed to play on blue side, which has been your favorite side during the split. So can you tell me now why you're stronger on blue side than on red side?
I feel like when Kiana is in the game, she's first pick Wolf, so everyone is banning her on red side. She already lose 1 ban on red. And our draft scenarios were just working better on blue side, so yeah, we decided to go blue.
And then you have to play on red for the last game. You were confident still?
We did a bit weird draft. Enemies left Olaf open for some reason. They didn't even ban a second rotation. So we just picked it and yeah.
Okay, now rewinding a bit. It's match point for you guys. Nobody was expecting it. You step in on stage about to maybe play the last game of the series, which could lead you to round 2. What goes through your head at that moment?
I mean, I was really confident that we will win. Like, I didn't feel like we will lose regardless what we do. I felt like if we will play like we do in practice, we will win for sure. And yeah, I didn't come here to lose. So.
And I gotta say, you look very calm and confident for a rookie who just managed to qualify to playoff, then beat Splyce, who was the favorite team, and then who's about to move to round 2. So, I mean, it's impressive to me.
I mean, that's just nice. Like, it's okay.
Well, I hope you can keep this mindset for the rest of the playoffs. Now, you will play against the winner of Vitality versus Schalke next week. Any thoughts on this matchup tomorrow?
We already won once against both of those teams. We also lost once. I don't really care who we will play against. Like, I just want to perform well, and I think if we will perform well, we are able to take both of the teams.
All right, well, I think like you should keep this mentality because it's been paying off for you guys. Congratulations again on making it to round 2. And now let's send it over to PGL.
Hello everyone, welcome to PGL, where we have Vander, Finn, and FLICKR, and more Rogue guests because Rogue won 3-0.
Shocks, we've solved it. The age-old question, who is better, TSM or Rogue? It has been solved. Excellent job, guys. You dispatched Splyce in probably under an hour and a half.
It's incredible. We just saw the interview with Inspired, who was very calm, cool, and collected. Really saw this coming. Finn, what do you think about this big win for you?
I mean, it's funny, he's so calm, and he was the one that screams the most when we end the game. But it's really fun, actually. It doesn't really sink in yet, I guess, but I think we all felt very confident. We weren't like, oh my god, we're underdogs here. I think we all kind of knew what we're capable of, and we kind of just showed it.
I told my team before they were choosing who are they going to play against that Splyce will be easier than Schalke. Because we had to play either Schalke or Splyce, right? So yeah, all of my team thought Schalke is the easier ones, but I told them Splyce is easier, guys, and we're gonna win it. So
why did you think even before that Splyce was the better opponent for you?
I just think they play kind of slow, and the games we lost against them in the regular season were just us playing actually bad. And I knew if we're gonna play to the level we show in scrims or in some games we play actually good, like the one against Origin or Schalke. I was confident we can actually take them because, I mean, you could see they don't do actually much.
So you will probably maybe rewatch it, so I'm just going to be honest to you and tell you what we said about the game before it started. We said Rogue is a worse version of Splyce because both teams prefer to play slow, and both teams statistically, okay, mea culpa, apparently not, but you can't deny that there was a big difference here. You guys played much more towards the early game in 3 games in a row.
A problem is in the middle of the split, I think we just started becoming scared on the stage. So we come in as a new team, new players, we don't have anything to lose. We pick up some games, some we lose. Playoffs are actually on the stake. And then I feel like people were just frightened a bit and scared on stage to not make mistakes. So we just went over, talked about it, and this is actually how we want to play the game, not just farm and not do anything.
I love that you guys bring up the aspect of mental, because looking at the Splyce guys, like every single time they took the stage, some of them were just like eyes closed, almost looked like they were just like, please let me get through this game, like it'll be okay. And it really did feel like a mental difference, not just a play style difference, but the fact that you guys had nothing to lose, that you were fearless, that you were bold, that you were taking plays, constantly pushing tempo in the game or using the tempo when you had had it. Whereas there were so many times that Splyce fumbled their tempo, where they went for random heralds, didn't get the herald, handed it to you guys, tried to swap. Like, it was just a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll help you out. We
Yeah.
actually prepared replays of each of the games, so we can
Wow.
run through it chronologically. I know often when I ask players who've just won a game about games, it's hard to even recall. So let's take a look at some of the moments and walk through them and see what the difference maker was. Starting with game one, where a lot of attention was put to the top lane, and there was a Garen Yuumi in the bot lane.
Yeah, we just went for Volibear because I think he didn't have flash in this moment, so we knew we can just one-shot him. And it turned out they also wanted to fight here, but I mean they just couldn't, and they just took the bad fight, I feel like.
What's crazy is that they knew that you guys were there, and I think that play works out if North Garen doesn't step up and get one shot by you guys instantly.
Yeah, well, the problem is that he also has to be the one that initiates the fight. But I mean, if he has no flash, we can just go on him and kill him very easily. So I think they just, I mean, they wanted to fight, but they couldn't win it.
Yeah, Finn, a trend we started seeing rather, in the first game and just continued was that Splyce kept throwing everything in the kitchen sink at you,
Yeah.
but it didn't matter. How did you react?
I mean, I think there was some deaths that I could have been avoided. I think it was the second game. No, I don't remember what game.
With the first blood game one?
Yeah, first blood game one I should never have died to, because I kind of knew he was coming and I kind of flipped it. But, well, most often than not, I knew that if they attacked me now, we would always get a lot on the other side of the map, so I don't really mind. So I just kept playing aggressive and kind of like threw it at their faces. Please attack me, please
it's
attack
like, okay,
me.
you should never take this trade now, but you did, and then
Yeah.
somehow you turn it around.
I actually like the Garen Yuumi. We played only like I think twice, and we never won with it, and we actually never went past like 5 minutes with this because people were just always killing us early game. But I liked it this game.
So you're just like, let's do it.
Well, Finn said in his pre-game interview, we have something prepared and we're going to try it in game one. We had a bit of a discussion about, you know, shouldn't they just play their own style? So how much of a risk did you think it was to take Garen Yuumi? Because we know how oppressive it can be, but it can also go wrong.
I just think we think it's like good in this game. Like from the draft purpose, and when we saw an opportunity to pick it, we went for it. And we kind of knew that, okay, it's game one. If we lose, nothing bad happens. But if we win this game with Garen Yuumi, then the Yuumi, like they have to change priority on Yuumi, right? Because they probably didn't expect us to play Yuumi Garen. They thought we're gonna play like standard AD, and then it's a bit hard against this Volibear pick. But if you play Garen, Volibear is kind of useless.
I mean, it's the best way to play a best of 5 by opening up with a bizarre strategy like that. Because like you're saying, you win, then you get an extra one on the board. You don't. You go back to your comfort picks and you play a standard
Do you
game
think
of
it's
League
the
of
best
Legends.
strategy for a team that is the underdog, or is it a good strategy no matter what?
I personally think it's a good strategy pretty much no matter what. And it felt like Splyce were kind of on the same vein in that they were playing more of an early game composition. And I think that their assumption was if this doesn't work, if we don't blow up Rogue, or like if we don't let Rogue get an early game lead over us, we can probably just go back to a late game scaling composition and win there. But Splyce were wrong on both accounts where they didn't contest you guys at all in the lane phase virtually in any of the games. They picked up some kills off of TP plays, but outside of that, like,
Drift
Splyce just kind
Herald
of rolled
didn't
over.
exist. You got the Infernal and like, I mean, was it baffling to you how easy everything went as well? And this is difficult because I don't want to take anything away from the way you played, right? It was really good, but you must have felt that sometimes that, how are we getting these objectives so easily?
I mean, it's more like we have our turn to make a play, and then we do what we want, and then they kind of don't really use their turn to make a play. They kind of fumble a bit. They kind of try to get too much or too little usually, and then suddenly it's our turn to make a play again, and then we can punish it really hard. So I think they were just a bit caught up in what we were doing and didn't really focus on what they wanted to do. That's why we kind of just
the weirdest thing about those objectives is the Herald in game 2, where that's what you guys said, that they started the Herald and we just went there and took it. And I think another game they actually didn't. They just went bot side with Sylas. Let me saw here on Vision. They just gave Herald for free when Kaisa had like 2-0-2, so she was stronger than.
And then in game 2, Larson just opens up by solo killing Humanoid. Yeah, in general, Hussein Musfi said that he found that Larson was kind of the MVP of the first 2 games. How did you think he did?
I think the MVP of 2 games was Woolite with the Garen and Kog'Maw. He also played really, really good. Like he traded was so much, and once he died because I didn't call that I have no W on both sides, so that was my fault. So I think whole team played really well. So it's really hard to choose MVP.
Sure.
But I think Woolite was like the one who always called to play aggressive because he's really strong with Garen and Kog'Maw. So I really enjoyed it.
Is it also important to you to kind of give praise to Woolite, because I feel he gets shortchanged a lot of the times because of things that may have happened in the past when he's had some solid games here, and you can't erase the past, but what more do you expect from him here? He does his job perfectly.
I mean, I don't really care that what people think about him. I just want to highlight that I think he was the MVP for us, at least those first 2 games. The third one, I mean, he also had a solid Kai'Sa game. So, yeah, he played really well today.
How did you think you did, Vander?
Yeah, I think I did also well. Yeah, I think I played good as well.
So we were talking a lot about how if Rogue's going to win, a lot is going to come off some of the X factor, like a Finn or a Larson, but mainly what is Vander going to call and how is he going to continue kind of his decision making and shot calling for this team. Do you feel that throughout the split, you probably started out having to call a lot and maybe have a lot of responsibility due to the kind of makeup of the team? Do you feel like that got better and now the team is more calling as a whole?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just important to be on the same page, like kind of before the game. So if I'm gonna shot call everything during the game, it's not really gonna work because we're gonna lose top side or something on mid, right? I'm like still my main focus on bot side. So if I would have to shot call everything, we'll just only do everything through bot. So it's important to just teach the newer players how to play the game. They also give their own ideas, and then when the actual game starts, then everyone can kind of jump in because we went over so many plays and like rotations, objectives, whatever, that everyone just knows what to do in the moment.
I feel like the really important takeaway, not necessarily for you guys because you know, but for fans watching this game is that normally when you have a really young team, it's just like the mechanical outplays and just kind of the brute force nature of like having that star player that they're able to brute force victories. What was so cool about Rogue is that it was playing the map. It was very intelligent League of Legends. It was pop-off performances from multiple members across the team. So this wasn't a, you know, Splyce got cheesed and rolled over. Like Yuumi Garen, that is difficult to deal with, but this was Rogue collectively being the better team in every single game and not just on the day, but then just kind of evolving from some of the strengths that we started to pick out in the regular split. They're a very smart team and they showed that today.
I think that's a key point because...
Got you.
You know, you see these trends throughout the split and then your week 9 was phenomenal when you made it to playoffs, but it's... Do you blame people for betting against you today and for putting you as the underdog?
Not really. I mean, it's really obvious that Splyce was the favorites today. And I mean, I never mind to be... I don't mind to be an underdog. It's just easier to play. You have zero pressure. And I kind of expected them to have pressure because they are the team that almost got second place. They have players who are really hungry for Worlds, like Chachi.
Looks like they did.
And I think they were kind of feeling the pressure. I mean, I always tell my team that you don't win the game just by winning it, just because you're the favorite. You have to actually make plays and take the game, right? And I feel like Splyce didn't really try to take the game. They just hope that we're gonna lose the game somehow, you know?
Well, let's look at game 3 because I think this was the most difficult one for you and possibly the one where Splyce had the best cards. Finn, what happens in this game and how come you did win it after all?
I mean, I think generally red side is a bit easier to draft. No, I mean, blue side is a bit easier to get like what you want in draft, and red side kind of just has to respond to what you prepare. So I think they got a really satisfactory draft for them, and they kind of, like, look at this.
What happens here?
There's just such like...
I mean, me and Larson kind of cleaned this fight up, like Rook in the Shy from Sweden.
But the thing is like...
I mean, the problem here was that...
How do you hook... Like, Kavit cannot get away. You killed him, and he must have been so frustrated. You just hooked him throughout the fight, and he couldn't. He tried to rocket jump away and
I mean, he got a bit yanked by the clip. But
the big problem with the other players that we didn't know about Smite. I mean, Splyce said he has no Smite, but actually had Smite, and then I was really confused what to do, so I didn't say anything and just died.
Okay.
So this was like we're really confused at the moment.
I mean, this was probably our worst.
This was really planned, this engage. So like we knew I'm gonna go on flank. They have no vision there, and we just want to force because we have Mountain Kai'Sa, so they have to come. And I'm just gonna try to engage.
But you needed the fight though, right? Because it looked like if it came to a fight or if Splyce got Baron, it would have been over, or did you not see it in that way?
I think the problem was kind of the side lanes, that we didn't really have any pressure from sides. that was the main problem of the game. So we just decided to, okay, we have Kled Rakan, maybe we can win some team fights.
I mean, I think that's the key part. Like, we don't really win the fights, but we're really easy ways to set up fights for us that are really favorable. Like, we can come from different angles. Both me and Vander can come from different angles, and we can also run from the same angles. It's really hard for them to walk into an area where we have control, right? So we kind of force them to make the mistakes, so we get a favorable fight.
And the early mount is the key for us to just force the fights on Nash.
Mountain Drakes are so OP. Like, please nerf them.
That's actually true.
Okay, well, I think you maybe would have won even without them. The fans have spoken, though. The Kia player of the series is Larson. So it was, I don't think, Willite wasn't in the vote. And sorry, wasn't
it was
either, I think.
Finn,
Vander,
Larson, and Vander.
And Vander, so...
We got fucking carried.
Me? I mean, my Yumi Qs were like targeted.
I mean, you can't miss it. No? Like, please don't say that.
No, okay, so
Larson played really great. Yeah. I mean,
he opened up with seriously.
Thing is, he also played like really flashy champions, right? So when you see at bot lane playing Kog'Maw Tam, I mean, sometimes people don't really see what they are doing, right? But yeah, he played really well Akali and Corki game 1. Game 3, I mean, he died 1v1 as well, so game 3 was a bit worse.
Would you say in general, because with the patch we said like, we're not going to see Corki or blah, 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 was it just important for you guys to pick comfort and kind of the compositions that you wanted and not think too much about, okay, it's not that strong as it has been? Was that the biggest priority, to just be comfortable?
For sure, but we were kind of thinking how to draft for lanes and for comp in general, maybe put some flex or two in there. And I mean, we didn't really know sometimes how we're going to end up draft. We have some ideas, but we just pick what we think is going to have some pressure for us, and that's it. Not much thing about like nerfs. The nerfs for Corki are something, but it's not like the champions unplayable.
Well, I know Finn just wanted to play his Kled probably in the last game, and you were down like 50 CS or something.
I mean, we had a bit of wonky rotations where I kind of lost 2 waves in a row. And then it kind of snowballed off that.
But you made up for it with that Kled ultimate on the top tower.
I mean, the Kled top was a bit of a gamble, but not really, because we know, like, okay, we either get turret or we get turret and kills. So.
Yeah. I mean, big thing is we somehow saw the jungle not being top side. And then it was bot side somewhere, and then it was actually free to just dive them.
Yeah, right.
I feel like they sometimes just showed too much like on the map for no reason, where they are, so we could just go for deep plays and risky ones.
I think you guys hit the nail on the head in that the idea of like tempo when it's Splyce's turn to make a play versus your turn to make a play, that whenever it was your turn to make a play, you were like contesting for Baron or diving towers or taking dragons, like you were doing so much more with it. When it was Splyce's turn to make a play, they'd be like, we'll clear a ward. We'll maybe look for a pick. Maybe we get the pick, but it just wasn't as effective and efficient as it should have been.
Yeah, I think we really drafted for it as well. Like, Kled is really easy to, like, if you have a window, you can really easily brute force, especially with Rakan. So we had a bit easier time doing this game, but yeah, I can agree.
I mean, G2 are the kings of making plays on tempo, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't just fight randomly. When they have tempo, then actually they force really hard, and they have really talented players. So that's kind of how we also try to emulate in a way. But I mean, we're not that good yet, but maybe some.
Hey, you're on
someday.
the way. You said before we're underdogs, so we don't have any pressure to play. If we take a look at the updated playoffs bracket, the good news is that you're going to be the underdogs for whatever you end up playing, so you'll never have pressure, which is good.
Perfect.
I do want to also just put people's attention on the fact that Splyce is now out of playoffs, and also has a chance to not even be able to get to Worlds or not even to play in the regional qualifier at all. It depends on other factors. If Vitality does very well, I think it is, because then they just wouldn't get there on points. So, Frost, do you just kind of want to round out the disappointment of what happened here today for Splyce?
I mean, the short of it is it's devastating. We were closest to Splyce on the side of where the casters were set up, so we constantly saw Splyce coming out. And again, every single time they came out after you guys beat them in game number 1, I really have to put back this idea of like mental pressure. It looked like the players were anxious. It looked like they were a bit uncomfortable, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I think you see that on some of the gameplay. And so to not make regional qualifiers, or even if Splyce do make regional qualifiers, I think it's a really big task that the staff have to reset their player mental, to get Splyce in good condition, to get them ready to try to make that run.
And it's just so devastating because, for so many years, and we keep saying it, they don't get there, but this is just the inverse. This is the worst they could have possibly done. I opened the show this afternoon, with a monologue ending it with Splyce. This is their chance to do well. if they don't fall at the first hurdle.
Guys just blue-shelled the shit out of them.
Completely.
I'm sorry.
I mean, I'm set for Chachi because I played with
Yeah.
him in Schalke as well, and we also it was like last best of 5. Either we win against Vitality in finals or against G2 later in the summer playoffs, and he has never been to Worlds. I mean, he's a really good guy and he is working hard, and he I think also plays good. So I'm set for Chachi, but
I mean, yeah, you can sad for the players, right? But as an org, it's just completely devastating. Before we move on to the next matchup, Vander, you mentioned you were in the finals. We saw you on the video actually last year, getting to the stage with Schalke, and you've talked a bit about the fact that you're still going and you want to keep going because of course you're going to keep going. You've worked at this for so long and you keep reaching these high highs. I mean, you made it to finals. Now this roster, nobody expected a lot from Rogue, let's be honest. And you and them find yourselves now in playoffs in a possible round 2, which you could also win. What does it mean to you to just, keep doing these fantastic things in Europe?
So I mean, I feel I'm still a good player and I can be in top teams. So I'm just happy to prove people wrong that doubted me after Schalke, I guess, final run because I was just playing Brahma Alistar. But I mean, those chances were just OP, so I was trying to get them when I could.
Now you play Yuumi.
Yeah, Yuumi, and I didn't play Braum. They banned it once and they picked it from me. So
Yeah. No problem. And Finn, what's it like for you, the experience? We've talked to you a lot over the weeks, but yeah, it's getting to that next level. You know, you guys have a real chance of getting to Athens.
I mean, I don't think we should think too much of it. We're just gonna keep going as we have, and as long as we play like we're doing scrims, we're gonna keep winning.
Interesting. All right, then tomorrow, Schalke 04 versus Vitality. I'll go down the line. Frosk, what's going to happen?
I mean, I predicted Schalke, but honestly, after today, I don't know. Vitality are very dangerous. We talk about how they are clutch players. You can never count them out. But I don't think that, at least what I've seen from the tape, that they have the coordination. I don't feel like, personally, that they play the game how I believe the game should be played.
I didn't think that about Rogue either.
And Schalke play the game very cleanly. They're a very smart team. It's very crisp and controlled.
I've heard this before.
I know, right?
Finn, what do you think?
I mean, I think generally Schalke is a lot stronger as a team. I think they play very smart, and I mean, they really know how to play the game, so they don't have like areas where they lack. In the same way that Vitality kind of relies too much on enemy disrespecting tempo or like getting cheesy picks somehow. While I do believe that Vitality has some really good players as well, especially if Cabochard is like extraordinary as a top laner. He's probably one of the best, I think, in the league. So I think they have like glimmers of hope where they can outshine Schalke.
Well, I think it will mainly come down to upset performance and Ignar. If they're gonna play a really solid game, how they play in scrims at least, then they're gonna win. And if they're gonna, let's say, get caught off guard by some picks from Attila Jacktor, then the confidence might drop a little bit. And if they're gonna play like too safe, I mean, they're just an engine, I feel like, in their team. Just how better bot lane will win.
Yeah, if you look at what better bot lane will win, there we go. So that is upset and Ignar, in your opinion?
I mean, they are for sure better, but thing is, Attila and Jackal, they're really dangerous, as you said, and they have a lot of cheese prepared, like fiddlesticks, for example. Like you kind of feel comfortable when this guy level 6. You don't know where he's on the map, and I mean, they can just suddenly like go 5 minutes anywhere.
Oh yeah, they play anything.
I think one of the biggest differences, though, between like a Schalke and a Splyce is that Schalke will actually attack you in lane phase, especially Upset and Ignar. They will look for 2v2 kills, whereas it feels like Kabe and Norscaran don't do that as often or as consistently. I love that you bring up the Fiddlesticks, also like the Draven pick for both these guys. So I expect the bot lanes tomorrow to be quite volatile and really play around like firepower in different like power matchups.
It's so interesting because today I didn't think anything mental or losing a game would throw Splyce off so much and would give you guys and you guys playing so well is also something that completely caught me off guard. So now I'm not sure if I do want to put it, because I put a 3-1 for Schalke because I think the X Factor is going to give Vitality one game no matter what. But yeah, the tilt is real. It can happen, Frosk.
I thought you changed your vote after the therapy.
What?
I thought you changed your vote.
After the therapy. I don't know, man. Vitality so far this split, it's just been so up and down that I have a hard time putting in there. But that's exactly how dangerous they are.
I really don't think Vitality is the team that will get mental breakdown.
No.
I mean, the only thing could happen is that if they're 0-2 and they get like super outclassed, that they lose both games in 20 minutes, then they might be just hopeless.
Yeah.
But Schalke is the team that can actually collapse if they lose 1 or 2 games. So the mental is for sure stronger Vitality, but I'm not saying that Schalke
No.
doesn't have a good one, you know. But
No.
they might tilt a little bit, I
They
think.
may. Okay, well, we'll check in tomorrow and see how it ends up. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week to play Schalke or Vitality,
Yep.
which is
See
crazy
you.
just saying this. Thank you so much for joining me, Vander, Finn, Frosk as well. Rogue makes it to round 2 of the playoffs. Crazy, and more craziness tomorrow. Vitality versus Schalke 04 at 4:30 Central European Summertime. So we'll see you then.
Incredible job.
Now bot. Now looking to pick a fight with Vizicachi. Remember, Spear of Shojin's going to make Vizicachi a big threat, but it's not going to matter too much if he gets taken down here. Trying to get enough Fury, Cold and Meek, but Finn just takes him out. Humanoid gets taken down. The Finn, he's going off. He's on a rampage. The Garen now coming in, but Inspired on the backside. Goodbye to Kame. Right into the meat grinder. Splyce absolutely getting ripped to pieces. Finn now godlike. Kame next on the list. They're going to take him out. They have absolutely dismantled Splyce for their first win. Well, I can't afford to be the body blocker this time, but does it need to be a fantastic ulti going in on Humanoid? The Azir is dead. Larsen's invisible. They tried to lock him up. Vander saved the day, but that means Woolite is vulnerable. No Tom Kench Devour for a few more seconds, but it's not going to matter. Massive damage on the Kame. He's exhausted, and he's dead. Shut down for Larsen. Vander in very much in trouble. A lot of damage goes down onto him, but once again, Larsen, the man you have to keep your eyes on, trying to chase down, looking for Xerxes. Is going to get the kill. Finn now on the hunt, has the reset. Kame is going to get pulled back. Infernal Chains will find him, but no. Kame still trying to survive. It will not be enough. Larsen on a rampage. Oh, to falling through. Xerxes, it will not be enough. He gives his life, and at this moment, on this day, Rogue from 5th place to 2-0 to match point versus Splyce. There we go, Vander off on the flank. He finds it. It's a beautiful engage. Everyone goes in. Humanoid is left, holding his head in his hands. He doesn't even get to participate. The Akali is useless. Woolite takes down Kame, and Humanoid dies in the end. Rogue have destroyed Splyce. Not just a 2-0, not just a win, but here we go, defying all expectations. The legacy of European rookies is alive and well with Rogue. They destroy Splyce. They secure top 4.